Okay, good evening, everyone. I'll call to order this Tuesday, April 7th meeting of the Fairfield Plan and Zoning Commission. Before we get started, want to welcome our two newest alternate commissioners, Commissioner Huntley and Churchill, who's joining us remotely. Welcome, glad to have you aboard. We'll start with our meeting minutes. We have 4 sets of minutes that we need to approve from December 9th, February 17th, February 24th, and March 24th. I have a motion on these items. Commissioner Braun.
Can I break off March 24th? Because I was going to ask that we table that till next time. It's so lengthy.
Sure. Do you have a motion on the other ones?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the other 3, which would be December 9th, February 24th, and February 17th.
Commissioner Braun moves to approve the minutes for December 9th, February 17th, and February 24th. Can I have a second? Commissioner Capozzi seconds. Commissioner Braun, comments?
No comments.
Commissioner Capozzi? No comments. Right. Any other comments, questions from the commission? All those in favor of, and we are without Commissioner Delgado for this, but we'll just go ahead with six commissioners for this one. All those in favor of the motion to approve the meeting minutes for December 9th, February 17th, and February 24th, please raise your hand or say aye. Okay, motion passes 6-0. Commissioner Braun, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah.
Postpone?
We're not supposed to use tables, so motion, is it suspend?
Postpone to the next meeting.
Postpone. Yeah, I make a motion to postpone March 24th because it's basically 10 pages long, 7 pages of that is a complicated regulation we approved on March 24th, and I would like to put off at least 1 week to next week, so we have more of a chance to review it in detail.
Okay, Commissioner Braun moves to postpone the March 24th meeting minutes to the April 14th meeting. Do I have a second? Commissioner Levy seconds. Anything further, Commissioner Braun?
No.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion to postpone the March 24th meeting minutes to the 14th meeting, please raise your hand or say aye. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. And then we will move on to our public hearings. First is a continuation of our hearing for amendments to section 4.2 and section 20.2.5 coastal high hazard VE and coastal AE zones permitted uses in the beach zone district, adding sections prohibiting pools in the beach district zone, coastal AE and VE flood zones. Ms. Harrigan, do you want to give us
as you indicated, we had discussed this at 2 prior meetings. The most recent prior meeting, we also had public comment. We have provided within the folder, as we had let the commission know, an alternative to the full prohibition, which was to allow for pools by special exception, which would require a public hearing. So if the commission has any questions, I'm happy to answer that. I think it was based on some of the discussion from the public at the last meeting. But I know that we have several members of the public who would like to speak on this today, as well as we received quite a bit of correspondence in the file.
Thank you, Harrigan. So we'll have public comment on this. I see Attorney Fallon is here and I understand is representing a number of neighbors. So we'll go to Attorney Fallon first. We'll then go to folks who are in the room and then anyone who's joining remotely. If you're joining remotely and wish to be heard on this item, you have to sign in chat and indicate that you want to be heard. Otherwise, we won't be able to activate you and call on you. So please do that now and we'll get that queue going. And then when we get to folks in the room, it's just first come, first serve. So you could just come up, state your name and address, and then you keep your comments to 3 minutes and on the subject of these regulations. So Attorney Fallon, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the commission and ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm an attorney in Fairfield, Connecticut. And I'm here tonight representing the Country Club of Fairfield and the Fairfield Beach Club. The first thing I want to do on behalf of my clients is to commend the commission for its commitment and staff for its commitment to floodplain management and efforts to minimize the impacts that can be caused by flooding. We recognize these are important issues, and we appreciate your diligence in addressing them. The Country Club of Fairfield is located in the Residence AAA zone. It comprises 85.63 acres. The Fairfield Beach Club is located in Residence District A and comprises 4.68 acres. Both clubs are permitted uses in the zone as not-for-profit membership clubs / recreational facilities. The membership in both clubs consists of a very substantial number of Fairfield town residents. Both have, as you may know, I think you do know, existing pools that were approved by this commission after review by the TPZ, the engineering department, the building department, and a complete coastal site plan review, which included review and input from the DEEP. So we wanted to briefly address with you respectfully what we perceive as, first of all, the impact that if you were to adopt the ban would occur to my clients. Obviously, from a legal perspective, if the ban were be adopted, then the pools that were existing and are existing at this property would take on the status of legally protected pre-existing nonconformities. And pursuant to your regulations, what that would mean that if destroyed or damaged beyond 50% of their value, they could not be rebuilt under any circumstances. As you will hear momentarily from Devin Santa, president of Race Coastal Engineering, this is more restrictive than FEMA's model guidance, the provisions of the building code, and the standards applied based upon sound engineering principles and best practices. The ban would be unique as far as I was able to research in the state of Connecticut. At the same time, we would want to make it clear that in the case of both these clubs, they have recently, in the Fairfield Beach Club, only 2 years ago, a new pool was approved by this commission, as I said, at that location. And the Country Club of Fairfield pool was similarly approved approximately a decade and a half ago. We recognize and appreciate the efforts of staff with regard to the amendment for consideration of the special exception provision in lieu of the ban. We would ask you most certainly not to approve the ban for the reasons that I have said. Let me address the special exception option from the standpoint of my clients. The motivation, as I've reviewed all the conversations and discussions with regard to the original amendment, was concern that pools being constructed on smaller, potentially undersized lots in the beach district created issues with regard to flood management that need to be addressed. I'll leave that for your due consideration. But from the perspective of my clients, we ask you to consider that there's a substantial difference between the construction or reconstruction of a pool on a small lot of 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 square feet, as opposed to the maintenance, construction, or reconstruction on a pool on a parcel of almost 5 acres or over 85 acres. If you determine to review or to adopt the special exception alternative, we'd ask you respectfully to consider an amendment to that would provide that the special exception process would not apply to pools that were used solely for the use of a not-for-profit membership club or recreational facility, provided that such pool, that such pool is located on a parcel of a minimum of 4 acres, and if you seemed appropriate to add, and where a duly approved pool had previously been located on the property within the last 5 years. We think it would take into consideration that we, based upon the size of our parcels, do not provide the same concerns or considerations that you might have about pool construction on small lots on Fairfield Beach Road. And we believe that if you adopted this amendment, you'd still have the responsibility and the right to regulate any new pool construction on our parcels, as we would still be required to come before you for a CAM site plan review, which would include your review by the town engineering department, and input and review by the Department of Environmental Protection. So that's our position. But to give you some background and context, and hopefully supportive of our position, I'd like to call on Devin Santa, who is with you tonight, who's the president of Race Coastal Engineering, and he's going to discuss with you and confirm the coastal area construction of pools and how pools can be constructed on such parcels in accordance with FEMA guidance, your own regulations, sound engineering principles, and the building code. So Devin, if you could come forward. Thank you.
Do I need to wear that, or is that okay? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. And thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Devin Santa. I'm here on behalf of the Country Club of Fairfield and Fairfield Beach Club. I'm also a Fairfield resident, living at 10 Overhill Road. To start, I'd like to echo the sentiments of Attorney Fallon and say the commitment of the Commission and the staff to prudent floodplain management is admirable and well done. So, but with that in mind, by way of introduction, my name is Devin Santa, president of Race Coastal Engineering. I'm a licensed professional engineer, licensed in 15 states. I have a bachelor's degree in structural engineering, a master's degree in coastal engineering, and have been practicing in this field for over 30 years. That experience has included design of pools in V zones, coastal A zones, or LIMWAs and A zones as well. I'm aware there's two separate versions of potential language, or proposed language, related to restrictions of construction of pools in either V zones, coastal A zones, or a specific beach area zone. What I want to get on the record here is that designs in these areas are very highly regulated as we sit here and now. Codes and standards that apply to these structures are the Connecticut State Building Code, and by extension, the International Building Code. Adopted within that is the standard of ASC 24, which is for flood-resistant construction. The town's own floodplain ordinances, which are based on FEMA model guidance, covers these structures. FEMA's technical bulletins add further color to the requirements of design. That litany of codes and standards that I just read off does require, in summary, that these structures resist flotation, that they resist wave loads or be frangible, that they not cause wave deflection to abutting properties, that they not cause worsening flood conditions, and that they have mechanicals located above the base flood elevation. Everything is highly regulated as we sit here and now, and that high regulation has worked well. And then from what I've seen in my experience, that these structures have performed when designed in accordance to these codes and standards successfully without adverse impact. So I'd say in my opinion, if the current code standards ordinances are followed, these structures can be effectively constructed without adverse impact. Further to that, I believe the proposed modified criteria, which proposes 5 additional sub-criteria, are picked up in large part, perhaps the exception of the sightline issue, in existing codes and standards. So from my perspective, it doesn't seem that additional regulations are necessary to control the issues that you're trying to control here. I believe they're picked up in existing documentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santa. Commissioner Braun.
Yeah, I have a quick question for Mr. Santa. You're an engineer, right?
Yes.
Apparently, the district that we would be imposing the ban on, if we chose to, comprises both LIMWA and VE. Could you just define those for us? And also, I have a second part to that question.
Certainly, those are zones that FEMA uses on your flood insurance rate maps.
Mhm.
to define certain hazards, and those are further adopted by both your floodplain ordinances and local building codes. A V zone is known as a coastal high hazard area. It has waves in excess of 3 feet. A LIMWA is known as a limit of moderate wave action, which is the acronym that collapses down to LIMWA, is also known as a coastal A zone that has waves that are up to 1.5 feet.
It's between 3 and
Yeah, between 3 and 1.5. So it's kind of a subset of the A zone. The standards between the LIMWA and V zone are very similar.
Okay, and they're high standards, and and I'm trying to understand why there's only 16 pools now. I guess the proposed area that this would impact would be an area that encompasses 915 parcels, but so far, well, we did approve a couple recently that I think came in anticipating the pool ban might be acted on, but I think we have only 16 pools in that grouping of 915 parcels. Is that because of the difficulty of getting past all those other regulations and standards under FEMA?
I can't speak to that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Capozzi.
I just have a question. In your professional opinion, is there anything in the current regulation that's lacking? Given your knowledge of the town's concern of potential natural incidents moving forward that the town is attempting to address with this proposed regulation?
Not that I'm aware of, and as I stated, I think there's 5 criteria in the proposed newer proposed modification. The only thing that I'm aware of that's not already currently picked up in either the building codes, ASC 24, the floodplain ordinances, or FEMA technical bulletins has to do with the sight lines of safety barriers, which I'm not sure we need more restrictive codes on building construction to address that.
Monahan.
Can you speak to point 5? The walls and future erosion control structures for the purpose of protecting the approved pool structure. What are the ramifications of that on any pool that you currently have?
I would say that's currently picked up in the Connecticut General Statutes with respect to flood and erosion control structures, which are only allowable for specific criteria. And Emmeline would know this. And that would be to protect pre-1995 structures, to protect infrastructure, water-dependent facilities, or graveyards. So I think it obviates that 5th bullet, which is picked up in the current Connecticut General Statute, which you would comply with being in the coastal zone.
So you're saying that should also be.
And if
I believe they're all picked up in other documents that
So if I could just add to that, one of the reasons why we implement things within the zoning regulations is for our staff's enforcement ability. So even if it's located within state statute, that's not a direct zoning regulation where I can have my zoning enforcement officer go out and actually do enforcement. If the state has jurisdiction. Yeah, sir, can you sit up here, please? Over on this side? He's one of our speakers, so. So that's where, we would need that language implemented in our own zoning regulations to allow our own zoning enforcement staff to do that enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Sandler.
Thank you, Commissioners.
One last question. So, are you familiar with special exceptions, special permits?
It's somewhat from a technical perspective, not a legal perspective.
So, okay, so if I ask you a question on that, it's not in your area of expertise?
I might want to default to Attorney Fallon on that sort of stuff.
And if I could just, so Attorney Fallon and I did not have an opportunity to talk in detail about this. John, the reason why I put special exception in there is because membership clubs require a special exception within the residential zones. So I thought it was consistent with the way they have to move forward anyway.
I think the use is certainly established by special exception. And I understand your position, Emmeline, that you want to make sure that these standards that Devin was referring to are referenced in your regulations. And I think you could certainly do that by amendment to section 20 to capture anything that you don't think is explicitly covered in section 20. My position on this particular situation is that although the use is a special exception use and has been established and maintained as such, in this instance, requiring a special exception for a reconstruction or construction of a pool that already exists that was damaged by act of God is respectfully an overreach, especially when you will still have a review process under the CAM coastal site plan statute to ensure that all the provisions of the regulations, all the FEMA guidance and everything else is taken into consideration. It is somewhat of a burden on an applicant to have to file for special exception. It does involve a public hearing, as a site plan situation is optional for a public hearing. And also from a highly technical legal perspective, the standards are significantly different, as I think some of the members of the commission know, especially the lawyers on the commission, with regard to the fact that there's a lot more discretion to deny a special exception application, notwithstanding the provisions of the regulations, than there is with a site plan approval where the review is more administrative. And although I absolutely trust the goodwill and discretion of this commission as presently constituted, I do think moving forward, I would be far more comfortable from my client's perspective that in the unlikely event that the pool was destroyed or damaged by more than 50% of its value, that they would submit to a coastal site plan review rather than having to undertake a more onerous and discretionary special exception review. And that's why what I suggested as potential language to modify the alternative proposal would include, one, a provision that would only apply to not-for-profit recreational clubs. Number two, that it would have to be located on a sizable parcel of in excess of 4 acres. And number three, it would only apply if there was already a pool that had been on the property within the last 5 years. So I think that's a reasonable balancing of my clients, the respective clubs' rights under the approvals that were previously granted to them, and at the same time the balance and consideration of the commission in, as I said at the beginning, ensuring that floodplain management and safety are paramount. So that's my thoughts.
Commissioner Braun.
Hi, Attorney Fallon. Are you aware of any other properties that would qualify for the exemption that you're proposing to the special exception?
I am not. As I articulated it, there may be a parcel of 4 acres somewhere in the area, but I don't know of any other private not-for-profit membership club that have a pool already.
Thank you, Attorney Fallon.
Thank you.
So just before we get to folks in the room, just one more reminder to anyone joining remotely. If you want to be heard on this item, please sign in and chat and indicate you want to speak so we can give you access. You're joining, if this is your first time at a zoning meeting, welcome. We get a lot of attorneys that come before us. We typically give them a little bit more discretion from a time perspective and to call on experts. So we're getting to general public now. If you want to be heard, we're just going to ask you to come up, first come, first serve, say your name, address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes. And sorry, Mr. Senda, do you have anything else to present?
I have nothing further unless the commission does.
All right. So
Thank you very much, commissioners. Thank you, Emily.
What's that for who? Oh, just generally. It's not every day that we're graced with the presence of a sitting state senator, Mr. Wang. How are you? As far as I know, you don't live in the beach area. And I know there are some cameras, some extra cameras in the room. Is there a reason other than the cameras and this audience that you're here?
Nice.
I don't care.
That was not called for. I'm sorry.
All right, anyway,
You got this,
go ahead, sir.
Well, the voters have spoken.
All right, when you're ready, you're ready.
Good evening. My name is Bill Rickard. I live at 850 Halls Farm Road. I've lived in Fairfield for over 35 years. I'm a member of the Country Club of Fairfield, been a member there for almost 30 years. I did submit a written comment on the website, but I'll just summarize what I said in my written comment, and I'll stay within 3 minutes. The Country Club of Fairfield has been a very important, productive member of the Southport Harbor community throughout its history. The club has cooperated with the Harbor Commission, the Shellfish Commission, the Inland Wetland Commission. It's participated in wildlife and bird protection programs. Most recently, the Country Club participated in the recent dredging of the mouth of Southport Harbor, giving equipment, personnel access to our side of the harbor so that it could be dredged to keep one of the showcase and important amenities of the town, being Southport Harbor, open and navigable. I believe that this regulation as proposed would have a significant hardship on the potential future repair and maintenance of the pool at the Country Club of Fairfield Beach. It is one of our key amenities enjoyed by hundreds of our members, their children, and their guests over the years. And I would respectfully urge that you not adopt the new regulation. And if you see fit to choose to adopt the regulation, I would ask you to consider the amendments proposed by Attorney Fallon. Thank you for your consideration.
Good evening. Hi, Commission. Thanks for hearing me. My name's Tim Meehan. I'm a 45-year resident of Lally Boulevard, a half a block from the beach. So I know what floods are. I've been through a bunch of them. I'm also one of the owners of Meehan and Ramos Pools, and we build concrete pools throughout Fairfield County. I have a Bachelor of Science in Math and Physics, and I've been in the pool industry for 30 years. So I think I can speak to this. I'm here in opposition to Section 4.2. It's my understanding, anecdotally reading stuff, that there was some concern about chemicals in pools and there being some problem during a flood. The only chemical that's actually in a swimming pool is chlorine. And the EPA says you can drink 4 parts per million. You wouldn't enjoy it, but you could. A swimming pool is 1 to 3. And if you tested, I'll date myself, Bridgeport Hydraulic, Aquarian, or whoever they are today, you're going to find 1 to 1.5. At that level, the only thing it can do is kill bacteria and viruses. You need to get to 10 parts per million before you can kill algae. So if there's any concern about this water getting into the sound and killing stuff, it's just not an issue. It's the same way if you left your hose on and it ran into the sound, you don't kill anything. Furthermore, to that end, the pH of a pool is typically 7.5, and EPA says we should be between 6.5 and 8.5 for drinking water. So that goes away. And then the total alkalinity, they don't actually have a standard, but it's recommended to be between, and total alkalinity is the buffer of moving pH wildly through the zone, is between 50 and 250, and pools are at 120. So we have basically literally drinking water in these pools. When a flood comes, there's no, all of a sudden the water jumps out of the pool. It's the exact opposite. All the debris that's coming in the flood starts pocketing in the pool, and then it's subsequently cleaned. And it just doesn't have any environmental impact whatsoever on the sound or the surrounding properties. Let's see, what else? Pools constructed at the beach area require engineers to hand in a plan, and you test the soils and then you see what's needed. And regularly in Fairfield, unlike Greenwich, where there's plenty of rock, it's nothing but organic material. And I have regularly gone down 25, 30 feet with multiple helical piles until we hit resistance. And then the shell of the pool is tied into those piles. So in a catastrophic storm that would remove all the soils in front of a house, the pool would be sitting there like table legs, but there would be 10 or 12 of them underneath. And then some people go, oh, well, it's going to pop out of the ground. Well, first off, in a flood, that's near impossible because the water is coming in, and that's what pools love, is that's what's holding them down. And then every pool built has what's called a hydrostatic relief valve in the bottom of it. And it allows water to come in, but doesn't allow water to go out. So anytime there's more water underneath the pool, it opens and fills the pool back up.
Please wrap up.
I will. So for those practical reasons and other, just that, I mean, I'm down by the beach and telling me I can't build a pool on my property when I bought it 45 years ago. It just seems, I have to go through all the hoops anyway. I don't know why this is needed on top of all that. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Gary Romeo. I live on 420 Birch Road, Fairfield. I can't speak with the same technical expertise as some of the people who were just here, but I'm going to give you my 2 cents. And I did send an email to you about the pool restrictions. I feel that restricting pools, I think a properly constructed pool does not pose a significant risk with regard to flooding. We've lived in our house for 40 years. From 1986 to 2003, we had no pool. 2004 to 2026, we've had a gunite in-ground pool that was constructed by putting 50 tons of gravel in and around the pool to enhance drainage. Our experience and our observations with the pool is that flooding has not changed in our yard as a result of having a pool. But in reality, when Long Island Sound, like in Hurricane Sandy and Irene, decides to come in, I don't care if there's a pool or not. It doesn't have a significant impact. Swimming pools, I do not believe, are a significant concern in terms of flooding. But I'm opposed to an ordinance that would say that my pool's damaged in a storm. I can't fix it. Okay. My pool was approved when we built it. We went through the permit process. And for us to be told you can't fix your pool, I think is just opposes people's property rights. And so from that perspective, I think that I can't say to this board whether or not you should allow other pools to be constructed. But again, from my observation, I don't think the pools are the issue. Pools also act as retention ponds. Water goes in. My pool may be full, pretty full, but it can take another 1,000 or 2,000 gallons of water. But I'm talking more rainwater. When Long Island Sound decides to flood like Hurricane Sandy, it makes no difference. What we really need to be talking about is how we mitigate that. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
We're not gonna ask
I just want to ask a question because I think his experience is relevant.
We're not gonna, but if we get into, we don't ask questions of people who testify, so.
But it's relevant. So, sir, may I ask you, thank you for your,
I'm sorry, no, we're not going to just,
I would just like
We're
to
not
ask
going
one
to.
question because he has relevant experience.
what is the relevant experience?
He had a pool during Hurricane Sandy.
We're not gonna start.
I just want to hear
No,
what
we're
his
not going to-
experience.
We're not gonna do it. We're not gonna do it.
I'd like to hear that as
We're
well.
not going to do it. This is how we do public hearings. We don't ask questions of the public. We're just sticking with that.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir,
sir.
for your testimony. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for answering our question to Race Engineering.
Good evening. My name is Paul Fontaine. I reside at 612 Penfield Road. Unlike many of the other participants who joined tonight, I'm a recent resident of the Fairfield Beach area. We moved here middle of last year. We have a pool. It's important for the committee to consider that part of our search into the Fairfield Beach area included a pool area, and we valued it. You can look up the property records and see how much we paid for the property. Not being able to fix one's pool, as the previous participant mentioned, or quite frankly, being able to, if you had sufficient lot size, include a pool on the property you purchased, seems like eminent domain without compensation on the property. One other thing I'll challenge, because we conducted an extensive search when we chose the Fairfield Beach area as our area of relocation. The number of 16 pools in the area is inconsistent with a trip with a couple of real estate agents in the area. I would challenge that data because it apparently makes it seem like.
If I could, the last two speakers have spoken from addresses where this particular regulation does not apply to your property at all.
It applies to mine.
It does not. No, you're located in an AE flood zone, not in a VE flood zone. And you're not located within the beach district zone.
That's inconsistent with my knowledge.
Could we show a map of the?
I can look at the
But to
beach.
hear what he has to say, he's a town resident.
He'll still get to speak.
So you're more than welcome to speak, but I think that's been a little bit of the misunderstanding is this really applies to the high velocity flood zone only. Beach district, which is Urell Pavilion, west along the Barrier Beach, Pine Creek, Old Dam Road, French Street. So that's the beach district zone. And then, if you're located within the beach neighborhood, that's not the subject of this particular application.
Honestly, that makes even less sense than I thought it did. Again, I'll use my 3 minutes, but it's because if a true event were to come in, we would be impacted. If another Sandy were to come in, we would be impacted.
Absolutely get flooded.
So,
but it's not a velocity flooding event. It's just, it fills up like a bathtub.
120 yards from the water.
Maybe he wants to buy a house over there.
All right, we're not gonna let one person speak at a time.
Yeah, that's obviously an issue.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your attention and want to reinforce the points made by the experts that were in front of you today, because I think they have the intimate knowledge and live in the community. Thank you.
Come on up, sorry.
Thank you. My name is Paul Landino. I live at 1657 Fairfield Beach Road. I do have a pool. And I agree with, I'm in opposition, obviously, but and I agree with everyone that has spoken before me, but I want to bring a sidebar issue to the table that I think is critically important. We keep talking about storms affecting property, and when a storm hits, we talk about examples of fixing a pool or adjusting a property. I think the zoning office should be carefully considering processes by which the restoration of property as quickly as possible back to its previous condition be done. The setting up regulations that cause an internal struggle for agencies like the building department and the zoning department at City Hall when 500 people have to come in at the same time that are experiencing damage, that impact. If now we're down to coming in to needing to restore a pool back to the way it was becomes part of that backlog. I think it's a very inefficient and poor use of government time. There are houses and people that are usually that are misplaced, and the energy should be brought towards bringing those people back to normalcy as quick as possible. So I'm against the regulation. I think pools that are damaged that can be restored back to the way they were as quickly as possible should require a rubber stamp submission and let the homeowner get his property back to normal as quickly as possible. Many have children. There's life safety issues at hand here, and you can't leave a hole in your backyard waiting for a permit approval. So I think let's keep it simple. Let's restore things back as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
That's what I have to say.
I don't know if that's a line, but
No, that'll be very, very quick. Troy Pinto, 173 Crestwood Road. Yes, I do not live in the beach area, but I'm a member of the Fairfield Beach Club. I agree with everything that's been said thus far in opposition of this. I appreciate the nobody's a bigger supporter or proponent of environmental standards and environmental improvement. I guess I would just urge, I haven't done enough research. I'm not a technical expert about how this was prioritized, but in one town resident's opinion, this seems extraordinarily petty compared to some of the bigger issues we have, like cleaning up our beaches, cleaning up our water, our beaches being closed anytime there's a storm. There just seems like there's a lot of places we could be putting our time other than something that's as small an impact as this when there's already rigorous standards. I just wanted to say that opinion, and I thank you for giving me some time.
first come, first serve.
Ed Rosenblum, my wife and I are homeowners, residents, and taxpayers at 1034 Fairfield Beach Road. Like many of the other speakers, we're completely 1,000% opposed to these new regulations. The lawyers, the engineers, the pool builders have all pointed out that these new regulations are ineffective, inefficient, duplicate other regulations. So I won't hash that over again. But I don't know why our pool at our home, which when it was built was in conformance with every regulation under the sun, now gets bucketed with the stroke of a pen into some non-conforming category. That's damaging to our property value. And for that reason, along with all the other well-said reasons, I'm completely opposed to this new regulation. Thank you.
Chair, may I say one thing? I would just like to say, as a newly elected commissioner, I am immensely grateful to every single person in this room who has come here to speak to us as a commission, because I don't feel good about when we operate in some semblance of a vacuum. We are here to serve you. And so regardless of your opinion of these regulations, it is hugely, hugely important and immensely gratifying to me that you are here. So thank you.
Just, I won't hold anyone to this, but just show of hands, how many folks plan on actually speaking? No? Done.
Good time.
Hadn't planned to, but since
Chair was open. They're putting it up.
Good evening. My name is Roland Schroeder. I live at 81 Carlin Drive in Fairfield. Appreciate the clarification from Ms. Harrigan. I have a pool. I do not believe it's in the affected area. However, I did live through Hurricane Sandy, and it's my understanding that the pool on my property lived through the prior floods or floods that have occurred, all without incident, other than as was described, debris in the pool. I mean, there was damage to my pool, but not to anything surrounding it. I very much appreciate that the town and others are doing their best to look out for the best interest of this community in a situation of a flood. But based upon what you've heard today and the submissions made, I'd respectfully suggest that this seems like a solution looking for a problem. I believe the town has significant planning and zoning issues that need to be addressed. Deeply appreciative of the time that you all spent doing that. But I look at the time and energy that is being spent on this issue, and I've yet to hear personally any evidence of any significant harm that has ever occurred from a pool in a prior flooding incident here or any neighboring town or community in Connecticut. That evidence has been produced and I haven't heard it. I apologize, but nothing that I'm aware of. I also don't think it's fair that going forward, we have some people who have been grandfathered into a pool in a situation that was approved and deemed safe, and that we're now talking about excluding others from having a similar level of enjoyment. We're deciding that properties that are 4 acres, but not properties that are ½ acre, can have a pool, and starting to draw lines that really don't have any basis in science or evidence or fact. They're simply being done for some form of political expedience. So I oppose deregulation, and I would respectfully suggest that there are other areas of focus where all this incredible time and energy should be spent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up. Mr. Mullen, do we have anyone sign in the chat?
Not so far.
Reminder, since it looks like some more folks have joined, if you are joining remotely and wish to be heard on this item, you have to sign in and indicate you want to be heard. Otherwise, we will not be able to call on you.
My name is Kathy Nisnansky. I live on Penfield Road. I don't have a pool. All my neighbors have pools. I could have slides into their pools, but I do not have a pool. But in layman's terms, why has this come up? I don't understand why all of a sudden, after all these years with people building pools, the beach club and the country club, why has this come up? Just in layman's terms, so I can explain it to somebody else.
Sargon, you want to take this?
Again, in the direct Long Island Sound adjacent properties, there's not that many pools. In your neighborhood, there are a lot of pools because there's not wave action. There's not specific coastal resources that would be displaced if you put in a pool. You're kind of on interior streets where, again, this proposal didn't even apply to those interior streets. So, you know, it's really trying to balance the environmental considerations with sea level rise, which we know is coming. If you look at the beach profile on Fairfield Beach Road itself, there's been a significant amount of erosion. So, you know, it's been something where we're trying to balance the efforts of the flood prevention, climate resilience, erosion control board, who is looking at the berm as to whether or not they want to increase the height of that for added flood protection. And the more accessory structures we add, including pools within this area, the less room there is for more broad flood protection for the greater Fairfield Beach area. So there was a lot of things that kind of were wrapped up in kind of discussing this. Environmental being one of them, sea level rise impacts that we're feeling being another, future flood protection being another, and understanding that we need room to install something if we're going to move in that direction. The Flood Erosion Control Board, the FERB, as they're known now, is looking at a long-term resiliency master plan. And so they have not determined whether or not a future project's going to be available, but they're looking at it. So again, the more we move into closer to the berm, the less opportunity we have to increase the height of that flood protection structure. So there were a lot of considerations.
So people who have pools already, they can't rebuild them, and this is going to solve all those problems?
It's to be determined. I don't know that the FERB study is in progress now. So, you know, we have consultants who are looking at that to see what that would take in terms of increasing the height of the berm. In Storm Sandy, it was very close to overtopping. So I think that's been a focus for them, and it's quite old, to be honest. So I think that's been a focus for them is, do we need to look at reinforcing that because it's a very old berm, and B, do we need to at that point also look to increase the height of it, which might mean making the profile of it a little bit wider.
One last thing, if I had a pool though, and it was approved by zoning when I moved into my house, I just don't think that's fair to the people that have pools. That it's just not fair. So, it's really
Understood.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I ask a question? Ms. Harrigan? So this slide that says townwide prohibition in VE and coastal AE landlocked flood zones. Can you just explain to people here the 915 homes in the beach district and the 528 homes in the VE flood zone and the AE Limwa zone 387?
I think those
what
are
you were
parcels,
discussing.
actually. I don't know if it's actually structures.
So
I think those are
can you
parcels.
just because I think
some of those
confused about it's not just the properties on the beach road. It was then expanded to include the Limwa zone, correct?
So the Limwa zone is, as Devin and I discussed, that's an area where you're still going to get wave action between 1.5 to 3 feet in height.
You point to the map so they could maybe.
Well, that's not what this is showing. This is showing just the beach district zone, which is the lime green color. The FEMA flood map's a little more complicated to look at.
Right.
Um,
I think it's this map right here.
correct. So, a lot of that is town-owned property, to be honest, in the tidal marshland. A lot of it does overlap with the beach district zone to begin with. So it's generally in most circumstances, it's the beach district, but then some additional shorefront properties.
Right.
Thank you, Ms. Hargan.
It's this map.
Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak on this item? Mr. Mullen, still no one online?
There is no one online.
I just wanted to follow up on the berm discussion because I think that's really interesting. So I wanted to get a little bit.
Ma'am? Who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry, Kristen Nick. I'm at 1800 Fairfield Beach Road. And I'm trying to understand how that would affect this proposal. That berm wouldn't be on any private property, would it?
The berm is already on private properties. There's easements generally along Pine Creek where that berm was constructed in the late 50s. And so it hasn't really been significantly upgraded since that period of time. And again, it was really close to overtopping in Storm Sandy. So it is part of what's being reviewed and considered as part of the upgrade to the resiliency plan right now.
Okay, and would a pool be allowed to be built in that?
Not within the berm. Right now,
Okay.
there's easements on all of those properties that don't allow for construction within that berm area. But I think the real question is if it's, and again, obviously the town would never do this without talking to the rest of the community, but it was something that frankly, for all the folks who were along Pine Creek, Old Dam Road, they didn't get flooded from the Long Island Sound side because that berm was in place. So I know that it's been, the FERB has been actively looking for if there's any potential to provide additional resiliency to the beach neighborhood. So it's been part of the discussion.
I'm still confused as to how that would affect most of these properties that are.
Because when you build a berm higher, you usually have to move it wider. And so right now where that berm is located, if we have to expand into people's yards in order to protect a whole neighborhood. And again, this isn't something that's been decided. It's just something that's under review right now. So, but what we're finding, for example, in the Rooster River, if I can make a comparison, is the town has been looking at solving some of the flooding problems there. And we just don't have enough room because there's a lot of residential property that's built really close within that watershed. So the town has done projects where they can acquire land and they can have the room to be able to help draw off some of the floodwaters within that area. It's very similar to what we're dealing with at the coast right now for projects. There's just not a lot of room to implement projects that would help with future flooding conditions.
I do appreciate the efforts to protect the properties and to do the right thing for environmental purposes and for flooding. I definitely understand that. I just don't understand if there's a direct correlation between this proposal and what you're talking about with the berm as being a relevant discussion in that and why this all came up.
It's a space consideration. It's frankly a space consideration.
But if you're not
Those
allowing.
parcels are not very
Built
large.
within that, and we're talking about a very small few amount of properties. We're not talking about all the people that are on Fairfield Beach Road. We're not talking about a lot of the Limois zone. We're not talking about, the ones that are affected right on the beach. It's a very small portion of properties that you're talking about that have this berm.
No, it's a lot of properties. It's the properties there are properties along Fairfield Beach Road that have the berm on the Pine Creek side. There's the properties that extend from Pine Creek all the way along Old Dam Road. So it's basically along both sides of the creek, as well as the bulkheads that were constructed. And so some of those bulkheads, if you look in those back areas, there's a ramp up to the top of the bulkhead And that's part of the protective berm structure.
I look at it every day.
Yeah, no,
Right.
exactly. I know.
I know.
But that's part of what,
Right, and there's
is right now,
pools
the
out
berm.
there that right now, I mean, and I know, you know, the distances and so forth, and I do, again,
It's
I
very tight,
appreciate
yeah.
this.
it's very
But at the
tight.
same time, it's, I think creating a problem to solve a problem that's never going to, you know, come to fruition. So, I'm 100% against this ban.
Thank you. Mr. Mullen, I think I saw a hand raised. Matthew Wagner.
There we go.
Hello, everyone. Matthew Wagner. Thank you very much for all your time and attention to this matter. Hi, Emmeline. Nice to see you again. I am just listening in and done a little bit of a review on the the issues with the pools, and it seems to me that if the FIRB analysis is still under consideration and hasn't been decided yet, it's that the an amendment to the regulations to ban the pools seems premature. If the other agency or department concludes that the berm needs to be expanded, then a more calculated effort could be taken to understand exactly where that needs to be, and a regulation can be in place that's more tailored to the situation. I also don't really understand why the ban has to come into place today for the possibility of an expansion of the berm in the future, when if that was to be the case, then easements could be put in place and pools could be filled in to expand the berm at that time. So it seems to me to be premature, and I don't think that the commission should amend the regulation and ban the pools in this district at this time.
Thank you. Anyone else online, Mr. Mullen? Go ahead, Commissioner Braun.
I just wanted to point out that I believe that was Matt Wagner, former chairman of the zoning commission served under a few years ago. Nice to hear from you. I have a question for Emmeline. Could you outline or show on the map where this berm is? It only is near the South Pine Creek area. It's not on the rest of the area of the ban.
It's on both sides of the creek.
Is it possible to show us on one of the aerials that we have?
We have a bigger easement map that I can get from engineering and include in the file. That shows where all of those easements are located, but it is along Pine Creek on both sides of Fairfield Beach Road facing Pine Creek, as well as Pine Creek and Old Dam Roads facing Pine Creek.
Is it on the edge of the pool ban area or just between the ocean and the first row of houses in the pool ban area?
It's within the beach district area is where the berm is located. And it's a significant number of properties. It's not all of the properties as you get further west to the end of the barrier beach, but it is a good number of the ones that do face on Pine Creek itself. I'm happy to put that in the folder for tomorrow.
It'd be really good to show the dimensions, because the pool ban area, my reading is it goes all the way to Lally Boulevard on one end. Am I reading that the right way on the aerial?
It's the waterfront property on Fairfield Beach Road that faces Long Island Sound within the beach district. So it's from Durrell Pavilion west, if that's helpful.
And then it goes inland a little bit along Pine Creek.
It includes French Street, Pine Creek, Old Dam Road.
And it's not exactly the beach district. It also includes portions of the flood zones, right? So you can't look at the beach district on our zoning map and say this is where the flood ban is. It's a little bit different than that, right?
That map is within your materials.
Right, but am I accurate when I said that? It's not exactly the beach district, which is on our zoning map. It includes a little bit more than that because the beach district does not exactly match the the VE zone and the LIMWA zones that are in the flood zone areas.
That's correct.
Okay, so the 915 houses are a little bit bigger than what's actually on the zoning map for the beach district.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Harrigan, if the commission was to consider an alternative to the alternative to do this as requiring a CAM application, just a site plan review, would that, as opposed to a special exception, aside from not requiring a special hearing, a public hearing, would that, would there be an opportunity for review by the engineering department to, I guess part of what the language that's in here talks about compliance with the deep manual, the anchoring and all that. Is that approach something where it's just on the commission to confirm, I guess, that it meets those requirements, or does the town
Right.
engineer get involved?
So with any site plan review, as Attorney Fallon pointed out, you have to have very specific standards within your regulations. So, you know, you really have to have standards and requirements identified fully within your regulations for a site plan review. So, for example, if we were talking about a gas station, you know, you clearly identify how many pumps, what the circulation is around the island, for example. And if you don't have those standards, you can't enforce that standard. So you do have to be a little bit more, so it might take a little bit more. I mean, if you're satisfied, I see Austin back there. We used Austin as a model for kind of figuring out what we needed. Thank you very much, Austin, for the standards within here. And so that's kind of what we drew from understanding if we're going to review this in a different way, these are the criteria that we should make sure that we have met based on the context of what we would look at for a particular site.
Right. So I get, and that's, thank you. That's what I was getting at, because there are those standards are written into the proposed special exception regulation language. And so those be ported over to
I think you could still keep them within the velocity zone regulations. And then if you wanted to do it, the coastal, you could just reference instead coastal site plan review instead of a special exception. I would have to circle back around with Attorney Fallon. I do think that membership clubs have to be reviewed by special exception. So if it's a repair to the pool in the exact same place, I think that would be fine. If they relocate the pool from one side of the property to another, I think it's still going to end up having to come to the board for a public hearing. Just like we would treat, the golf courses have all come before the commission, their special exception use. If they add a paddle, a new paddle court, or if they add new pickleball courts where there weren't pickleball courts before. So I think that's still going to fall within that level of review, comparable to the golf courses that are inland, for example. So, I think that would, but right now, if it's a waterfront site and there's any work on a waterfront site, it has to come for a CAM anyway.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it would cover the beach district area. It's just whether, I think we have to be comfortable with the standards that are within the regulations.
Thank you. Commissioner Capozzi.
Just a question, and we may have to, you may not know the answer, but so this affects approximately a little over 900 parcels, this proposed regulation, correct?
Mhm.
In that there are currently 16 pools, 2 of which are at private clubs. So for 14 private pools, of the remaining 900-ish parcels, do we have any idea how many of those homes are at max coverage already, that where pools could even be built?
It's, it's very challenging because we've had, in the post-Sandy environment, we've had a lot of reconstruction of new homes based on the 50% rule. And the 50% rule, based on the FEMA standards, applies to accessory structures like pools or sheds, as well as primary houses. So when something is damaged more than 50%, we're required by FEMA to bring it up to current construction standards. Anyway, that's part of the agreement with our participation in the National Flood Insurance Program.
If Fairfield Beach Club is east of Jackie Durrell, why is it included in discussion?
It's in a velocity zone.
So it's not everything west of Jackie Durrell?
Questions?
Just
For the beach district, they're in a velocity zone, which is the wave action zone. So that's why they're included in this area.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Monahan.
So I think some people have concerns about the potential for their existing pool or future pool to be denied, the special exception being not necessarily absolute. If you buy a home that currently has a pool, the expectation when you transfer it for new ownership and put it up for sale is that the pool has value to the owner. To say that if something damages the pool, they may not be able to rebuild the pool. One, it's expensive. You have to get rid of the current pool. Number two, there's not an absolute to being able to rebuild that because you would have a public hearing and there would be certain things that, you need to kind of show and it could be denied. So it just puts it to me, an expectation, a burdensome expectation on the homeowner to have to actually apply for that and hope that it's passed. And in the situation where there's a transfer of a property from one homeowner to the next, it could absolutely, as a real estate agent, adversely affect the value and potentially the sale. So that I think is an important consideration. So to have an existing pool being relocated and rebuilt on an existing property in the same space at the same size as in current standards should not be deemed, a special exception that comes forward for to be rebuilt if damaged. It's not just damage, things over time break down. So not everything that, is 40 years old is going to live another 40 years in its current form. Sometimes it needs to be upgraded. If the homeowner has the money and the wherewithal to rebuild it in the same space using current standards, FEMA hasn't banned it, to come for a special exception just excessive.
Ron.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on what Commissioner Monahan said and what former Chairman Matt Wagner said. Is the main reason we're doing this at this point because of the need in the future to work on the berm? Is that the main reason it's coming up now? Because this was initiated by our zoning department, not by this commission. So I'm trying to understand exactly why this is coming up right now.
That is certainly one of the considerations. I mean, we're again updating this master resiliency plan. I think they've been talking about how do we protect the Fairfield Beach neighborhoods. We know there's a lot of homes in this area and there's limited opportunities available to the town. There was the Army Corps study that was done back in 2019, 20, and that was a really expensive plan. It was one that was potentially effective, but deemed too expensive for the town to pursue. So I think they're trying to actively break some of those larger projects into smaller projects, and the berm keeps coming up as an item for consideration.
Because one of some of the letters I've read, one of the people pointed out the oddity of banning pools when we keep approving development and adding population down to this area, density of population. And I know DEP doesn't want anything down there. They keep writing letters about, warning us about adding apartment buildings in the area of, that's subject to sea level rise. But we're doing that. But this seems like kind of small in relation to that. Just comment.
Yeah, any final comment by members of the public? Come on up, sir. And come on up after him.
Yeah, Rick Grauer. I'm also a past chairman of Flood Erosion Control Board. Emmeline mentioned that you're studying raising the berm. I don't really remember the exact date, but Tide and Bond, one of Race's competitors, studied that berm, made on the north side of Pine Creek, made a presentation to the homeowners, and it was flatly turned down. The homeowners were not interested in it. The existing berm is at elevation 12. Sandy had a still water elevation of 10.5. As far as the berm on the south side of Pine Creek, I'm sure Devin can comment on that. There is only a berm between the first hump on Fairfield Beach Road and the second hump. And if you wanted to put a new bulkhead in, you can't make it to elevation 12 anymore because the state won't allow you. So you don't have a berm to worry about. And Emily had pointed out that the Flood Erosion Board is studying something, but yet you're racing to put in a pool ban for something that may or may never happen. And I don't see the urgency for that. And it was clearly explained before, the pool can't pop out of the ground. So it's not going to pop up and magically knock down somebody else's house. So I failed to see the physics behind banning a pool because it's going to cause damage to something else. It may cause a great expense to the homeowner, but that's their problem, not your problem or the members of the town, because the town doesn't bear any expense to that. They do it, on the other hand, get a lot of taxes from it. I think you're looking, going outside the lines, looking for things to regulate that don't really need to be regulated. That's it.
Thank you. Jack, come on up.
Nobody. Stay there, stay there. Here's this thing.
Good evening. My name is Laura Ely. I've been a resident of Fairfield for about 45 years and an active member of the Fairfield Beach Club. I am concerned about the fact that our pool is anchored in bedrock and is fully approved by FEMA and the town of Fairfield. The proposed regulation goes far beyond FEMA requirements, and Fairfield is the only town in Connecticut considering such restrictions. So I'd like to know why Fairfield? Why not all the other towns in Fairfield along the water? It seems, and again, I support all the other speakers that we've had. It just seems premature as well. But I'd like to know why Fairfield.
I think Ms. Hargan gave an explanation of that. I don't think she could speak to other towns, but refer back to the.
No, I can't speak for other towns.
So there's no answer.
There is, but we spoke at length about that, yeah.
Okay, I think you should confer with some other towns and find out why, well, if you feel this is so necessary, why hasn't it been adopted by other towns? Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard?
There's a gentleman who's on chat who's trying to ask how to make a comment, but I don't know what to tell him.
We still.
How does he raise his hand?
So it should be a raise hand button.
I don't see one on mine, but
You don't have the person who added the chat?
No. You have the name of that person, Commissioner Braun?
his name is Mr. Peterson, Gary Peterson. He said, how do I raise my, I said, you have to raise your hand, but honestly, I don't see the hand thing on mine.
Okay. So he'd like to make a comment? I can unmute him.
Hi, can you hear me? This is Gary Peterson.
Yes, good evening.
Resident of Fairfield for over 40 years. And in addition to what Laura just said, I'd like to point out that while there are only 16 pools, the membership of the two clubs is each is over 300 household units. So it's a total of 600 household units that would be affected, which means maybe 1,000 to 2,000 individuals would be affected by this. So it seems quite onerous, given the fact that there hasn't been a problem. Fairfield's the only town considering this, and it goes beyond FEMA standards. So I'd just like to emphasize those points in terms of my opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last call. Anyone? Attorney Russo.
Chair, members of the commission, sorry, I was in Bridgeport, another hearing. Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzo LLC, offices at 10 Sasko Hill Road, Fairfield. Here on behalf of the multiple property owners, particularly one at 1475 Fairfield Beach Road. My understanding is Attorney Fallon spoke. I'm sure he covered points I would have covered. I taught him everything he knows. But to add a couple of things on top of just from when my client came forward on his application, some of the questions that were raised during that process, I think the regulation that's being, alternative that's being discussed, I think covers this commission and being able to request the information needed. I know during that discussion, there was talk about maintenance and maintenance required. One of the things I'll say is that almost every application that comes before you has an obligation for maintenance beyond the approval. If you think about drainage reports, there's requirements from those applicants that they maintain their drainage systems, landscaping plans, that you maintain your landscaping. You can't just plant, a planting and then leave it and do nothing. There's obligations that are required under that. And that would be the same thing for a pool owner. I heard that there was discussion about the easements, the berm easement. If you recall, in that application, for the prior pool application, this commission made a condition so that if there were changes in the future, if somebody came in or wanted to put in a fence or any other type of improvement around that pool, they would have to come back before you. That would allow you to look to see how that would relate to the easement. So again, I think the commission would be protected in knowing that you could put a condition like that on it, and a homeowner would have to come back before you if they would, if they were making improvements to their pool. So I think, as the alternative being discussed, I think it protects the commission and protects the town to ensure that these pools are built to sound engineering and to FEMA standards, and the regulations give you the tools to make sure it's protected even post approval. Happy to answer any questions, but I'm guessing the rest of everything got covered.
Thank you, Attorney Russo.
Thank you.
Any other member of the public wish to speak? Okay, no one else online? All right, I'll close the public hearing on this item. Thank you, everyone, for your participation in
There's
that.
also a discussion about fences as it pertains to the beach.
I'm about to announce that, don't worry. Next item is I'll actually call the next two together. Section 19, fences and walls, a new section regarding fence and wall height, setbacks and locations in relation to intersections and driveways, and section 36, definitions, to add definitions for fences and walls. And Ms. Harrigan or Mr. Mullen is going to just give a quick, very brief summary of that. Or anyone who's staying and interested.
So this is proposed section 19, as well as a definition for fences. This applies to all of the districts within town. We presently have like a partial definition of a fence limitation within our regulations, but in consultation with our zoning enforcement office staff, they felt that we needed something more robust. In addition, in consultation with the engineering department and the police department, they requested more information about visibility at intersections where they've had problems with fences and shrubbery that have been too high. So we do have a proposed diagram for visibility at intersections that requires a 24 by 24-foot triangle, and the area between that triangle to be maintained at a lesser height, whether it's shrubbery, fences, or walls. We also have a requirement for visibility at driveways. And there was a bit of concern about fences and walls within shoreline areas. I don't really want to go back to the prior regulation, but I do want to indicate that one of the reasons why we indicated that safety barriers, the maximum height of safety barriers allowed would be the minimum standard required by the building code is because at least for my zoning enforcement staff and the questions that we get along the shoreline, those folks who are direct waterfront based on our current regulations, there's kind of a built-in view protection regulation in that structures aren't allowed beyond the wall, the rear wall of the face of the building that faces the water. With pools potentially comes the request for screening. And we want to make sure that that screening meets the minimum safety requirements, but that people then aren't going to put in a solid 6-foot fence along the back of their property, which then provides view obstruction where we haven't had that problem in the past. So I don't also want to create a problem that could diminish property values because you no longer have that more panoramic view available to you. I know that we did have Commissioner Levy submit some language for a fence definition as well. I will say that in the past, we have had some DEP enforcement issues with some fencing that intrudes within the public trust area. If those commissioners are not familiar, the public trust law is a very old law that anything below the mean high water line or the high tide line, the highest high tide line is considered public trust land. And so that's available for anybody within the state of Connecticut to pass. And so the concern is, sometimes, especially when we've had our higher monthly high tides, sometimes some of the property delineations, which we in the past have not considered to be fences, such as the posts with ropes, some of the snow fencing, that sometimes inadvertently those end up getting placed a little too waterward and folks can't pass freely in the public trust area. So I know there's been a little bit of consideration with that. But that's what's before you tonight is just fences and walls that apply to everybody. And then perhaps an additional conversation about ensuring that we don't unintentionally limit public trust areas.
Thank you, Ms. Harrigan. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Braun.
This whole section 19, is this a brand new section? It does not exist right now. This is not this is basically a red line. This is a complete new section.
That's correct.
And the fence definition that was supplied by Commissioner Levy, that is not in this proposed regulation right now. This is proposed to be amending the regulation with a definition of what a fence is.
That would be located within the definition section, which is section 36.
So we don't have that definition in our regulations currently then?
No, we don't.
No.
So I guess one question I have is, the thing about ropes, when I go to the beach area, which isn't that often, this would be, well, this is, okay, somewhere in here, does it say above mean high water? Because that is the delineation of somebody's property boundary, right? Mean high water?
Yes.
Because
Or
this
back line.
So how would it work if the border of your property line is at mean high water, and then there's a setback basically before you can put the fence? Is that what this would relate to in the coastal area? That you'd have to go X amount of feet behind landward of mean high water if you want to put a fence delineating, on the outline of your property line? How does that work? Maybe you could explain that.
I don't think that's, so in the,
Would that apply to somebody marking their property on the beach, basically?
right. Sorry, hold on.
Would you like me to address it?
Commissioner Levy, if that's okay with you.
With the chair's permission, yeah, please. Yeah, I was, generally I'd reserve my opinions and comments till deliberation, but just by way of clarification, 4.12, which is setbacks from Long Island Sound, already prohibits fences even between the high, the mean high water line and the back of the house for any house that was built before 1989. So whether it's a snow fence or a rope barrier fence, technically it's in violation of our existing regulations. The purpose of the definition is to make it clear exactly what a fence is and whether it's a snow fence, a horizontal, something like a fence, post and beam fence or a rope fence, it's still a fence. And it's not, and it's just to make it clear so that zoning enforcement can take steps to enforce what's an existing regulation and make it clear. It's not to add anything new. In terms of the issue about the high water mark and, fencing, there are times when, particularly during perigee tides or for about a third of every month, the tides actually exceed the high water mark. So any fence that was set at the mean high water mark would prevent anybody from walking between the fence and the shore without stepping onto private property. And then, of course, there is the issue of the visual desecration of the beach. I mean, technically, if you allow these rope barriers, we could be looking like the OK Corral along the length of Fairfield Beach Road. So all I'm trying to do by suggesting a fence is to make it clear so that they can enforce the existing provisions of 4.12, which since September 1st, 1989, have prohibited fences between the back of the house and the beach. People should be able to walk along the beach and not have to be confronted by fences, particularly around the area of Lighthouse Point, where that's always been a problem.
When you say 1989, does that mean fences that were built before 1989 are grandfathered in? Or could you explain that?
If there are any.
Subjective.
1989 is when the regulation went into effect. So if there's a fence that's still standing from 1989 that is between the house and the high water mark, mean high water mark, that fence could stand. But I don't know that there are any.
Commissioner Monahan.
So the definition of the beach is what is subjective?
No, it's a minimum setback of buildings from Long Island Sound.
Well, I think we need legal advice on this particular topic because I've read different opinions. That's your opinion. I believe that people whose homes are on the beach, they want to demarcate their property. It is a very public, very used property. Along the properties along the beach are walked, are traversed, almost every day by people who enjoy it. But I just think that that is subjective, what you stated earlier. That's your opinion.
It's my opinion. I would have saved it till deliberation time, but the converse, of course, the right to privacy and the right to the public to the unobstructed view of the sound.
Commissioner Randolph.
So good conversation. Commissioner Levy, I appreciate your photo essay here. So just to be clear, the photos that you sent all qualify as fences. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So ropes, slats, snow fences, as I call them. Those all fall into the category of fences according to your written definition.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So and then I guess also according to the interpretation, the commonly understood interpretation of where fences would be located, many of the fences you show in your pictures are violations.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I'm I'm saying many, so.
Other questions?
Through you, Commissioner, to Commissioner Levy. How many properties on Fairfield Beach would currently be affected? Have you counted? We
Between-
currently have slats, some of those, I'll call them fences. I don't believe them to be fences. I do not believe this should be even discussed because they're not fences. Some are used for, to prevent sand from coming onto those properties, especially in Highland. So how many properties?
Between Penfield Pavilion and
Penfield?
the end where you get to the creek.
No, it's the whole beach. It would be the whole beach because it would be a fence. So it'd be the fence, not just in the beach area. You're saying it's, so how many from the entire beach?
I walked from Penfield
Yep.
Pavilion
Yep.
to the end of Fairfield Beach Road, you know, where it reaches
Yep.
Pine Creek,
To the
and there are
general.
between 20 and
I think that's higher than that. Okay. I'll count them tomorrow.
okay. Take a walk together.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go to public comment. Is there any member of the public in person who wishes to be heard on this item? I'll just make another announcement that if you're joining remotely and wish to be heard on this item, please sign in and chat and indicate you want to speak.
Rick Rowland, former chairman of Flood Erosion. You already have a regulation for snow fences. It was put out by the DEP. It was updated in 2024. I don't know if you've ever looked at it. But on page 9 and 10, it addresses fences. And I'll read to you one section at the end of page 10. Private ownership ends at mean high water line, and the state holds title to the land's waterward of the mean high water. Just to correct what Emlyn was saying before, any fencing or signage installed to deter the public from public trust area is considered to be inconsistent with the public trust doctrine and the policies of Connecticut Coastal Management Act. When you're talking walking from Penfield to the end, you missed the Durrell Pavilion. You're really looking at private property from Durrell going west. It's all private property. People have put snow fences out there because they're very effective in catching drifting sand from wind. It builds up the beach. It helps protect the beach grass, which also helps protect the beach from erosion. The people that live along the beach are smart enough to try to protect their own property. You want to take the fences away, you're encouraging further erosion. I don't think that's your real intent because you get a fortune in taxes from all those private properties. And I don't think the town can really sustain the loss of those tax dollars. Why you need to have additional regulations besides what DEP's already put in, beyond my comprehension. And as far as people putting snow fences down into the water, you might only do that once. And then you find out the wave action takes the fence out and you got to go clean up the mess and you don't put it back again because you learned the hard way. Most of the people have fences that just go out perpendicular to the water. There's a few that go parallel to the water because they have pets and they're trying to contain the pet within their yard. Snow fences also do not block visibility. At best, they're 3 to 4 feet high. If you want to regulate something, how about regulating people's hedges that grow out over the sidewalks in town so you can't walk on the sidewalk? You got to walk out into the street or on the people's lawn because you can't walk. They let your hedge block the sidewalk, which is a public trust. But you don't care about that. You only care about snow fences. I'm at a loss here.
Question for the, so just to clarify, because there's a great deal of misinformation being propagated by certain people. The intent of this is to define effects. Is that correct? And nothing more?
Well, yes, and well, the whole section is to define offense and articulate standards, I think that in the past have been suggestive by the office instead of fully articulated within local regulatory law.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have anything to add, Matt? Since you're here.
Since I'm here, for the record, Matt Decker, zoning officer for the town. it's been past practice for at least the last 20+ years that I've been doing this, that snow fences and posts with ropes are not considered fences. In my opinion, a fence is something that would obstruct someone's view to someone's property, and that would be a 6-foot stockade fence, a 6-foot, vinyl panel fence, something like that, which we don't permit in the beach district beyond the outside wall of a house facing the water. But for the purposes that were indicated before in regard to property lines, where one's property past Jackie Durrell's pavilion goes, it does proceed out to the Jaime water line is where their property line ends. Now, again, it is private property, and people are cognizant of others walking on their property. In some cases, walking as close up to where their decks are, that I've gotten calls in the past on. And some people have then put out these snow fences and these ropes to delineate where people can go and can't go. And that was one that we were allowing people to do, not put up a high fence that would obstruct one's view. And these other fences, Mr. Grauer said, they're 4 feet, but you got to put them in about 1 foot or so, 1.5 feet into the ground, to A, protect the sand from eroding, and then B, just to give that delineated line of where one's property would be. So you're only talking about 2.5 feet off the ground, maybe 3 at the most. And that's how we handle the regulation of what was permitted in the beach district for fencing.
Thank you. Commissioner Levy.
Yeah. Now, snow fence, the proposed definition is would be a fence that's used to prevent entrance, to confine, or to mark a boundary. Snow fence would not be excluded by that. One that's there simply for the purpose of erosion control, correct?
Well, yeah, they're good. You want to protect your erosion on your property. So essentially it's got to go on your property line. We'll have a survey. They'll identify where that line is and they'll put the fence down to a certain point to protect where the plantings are and so forth. They won't take it all the way down to the water, but there are some people that may.
And it probably would not be parallel to the shore, but would be perpendicular in most cases.
Well, not every single property has got a parallel line to the Jaime water. It's subjective. Each one is subjective. So, which is why most of the time you don't see them go all the way out. They're just there to protect, and they curve right back onto their property. Sometimes they go the full round, encompass the entire parcel. Sometimes they don't.
But if we exclude or if we allow rope and rope barriers, theoretically, the entire shoreline could be roped, correct?
Theoretically, sure. But I think there's only 2 or 3, maybe 4.
The rope barriers, probably about that many.
Yeah, I don't think they're more than that. So, and they're further down. I mean, they're down in the high teens and low 2000.
There's one right by Penfield.
That we addressed and we moved that back. That was a little obstructive.
Lighthouse Point.
Yeah, that was a little obstructive. So we had that moved back. But aside from that, most of them are further down.
Mr. Decker, could you explain the difference between mean high water and the high tide line? Is there a difference? And do we use mean high water or high tide line?
One and the same, just about. Talking mean high tide.
Mean is different.
From the DEP.
Mean is different than high.
Yeah.
Means the average high water is
right
beyond it.
How do people know where mean high water is? That's the property. That's the difference between the property owner's land and the public trust, which is basically the ocean and the beach below.
Okay.
You can see it.
Yeah. And again, your survey is identifying the multiple lines that you have as you get closer to the point of zero for the average height for how we measure everything in town.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just, the coastal jurisdiction is a little bit closer up than the mean.
There are other members of the public who want to speak on this.
Online. I have a question for you. Mr. Decker, in your experience, how often, in your lengthy experience, how often has someone established any kind of a fence, barrier, whatever we want to call it, rope, that has exceeded their property line into, I mean, I know that there's an easement, but into the public trust where you've had to ask them, you mentioned one instance, but
That's the only enforcement that I've ever taken, was when they, pushed the rope. It was pretty evident that they really didn't want anybody crossing over the rock barrier, and they put the rope line out too far, and we had them bring it back. Other than that, I've never had a phone call or enforcement act or any, type of, requirement of someone to move their snow fence or rope line.
in my experience of knowing you, you are a very vigilant person, making sure that everyone is adhering to what they're supposed to be adhering to.
Do the best we can.
Thank you for your insight.
Okay, yeah, we have one online.
Yes.
Anyone else in the room who wishes to speak on this? Come on up.
You guys thought you were gonna get rid of me this fast. I'm sorry. I just need a comment. So Austin Folds, property owner at 1370 and 1361 Fairfield Beach Road. So one Creekside and one on the beach side. I've been, like I said, I've been there for 30 plus years. Again, it's kind of like, it's in your best interest as a property owner not to put a 6-foot fence to block your obstruction, right? Of the sound. You're paying that money to have those views, and it's in your best interest, your neighbors, everyone's on top of each other in the beach district, and you want to be able to, get along respectfully. But I can tell you, I don't know about anybody on this commission, but getting bit from a dog that, comes out from not having a fence, or having a dog that gets bit from not having a, protective fence coming from either the seaside, Long Island Sound, or from the land side. These snow fences are effective in doing that. As a dog owner myself, we have 4 golden retrievers. They're not all friendly. No, I have one, but as a family, 4. And when you get them together, that they're really crazy, and you want them to be able to enjoy the beach. And you can do so. We've installed a temporary snow fence, and we take it up. We take it out as soon as all the dogs are out of the property, right? So again, it's in our best interest to just remove these so-called fences. But I'm absolutely, again, I don't know why we're now stuck on the beach for more regulations, but like the fence ban or fence proposal ban, absolutely against that. It's in best interest for the public, that are people that are walking. We love having people walk up and down. It's great. They should get to enjoy, the beach as well. But again, in my opinion, having a protective fence as well as a barrier to just say, hey, this is my property, I think is probably in the best interest of the property owner. So again, thank you for hearing it, and you're sick of me, but thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mullen.
You have John Loftus.
Mr. Loftus.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a beach resident. I live at 132 Fairfield Beach Road, and I just wanted to provide a little context in particular to some of the houses near Penfield Beach that have what we're calling ropes. And the reason for that, and I don't think, and I know some of the property owners there, aesthetically, I think they would prefer not to have a rope there either, but they have it there because there's just been such a consistent and fundamental lack of respect of private property from beachgoers that park at Penfield, many of whom probably are not even Fairfield residents, and just completely disregard private property and will just set up shop almost to somebody's where their deck is or the grass is. And we have a similar problem as a member of the Fairfield Beach Club, where we're not allowed to extend our fence or have a rope further. We have so many people that do not respect the private property, do not walk on the low tide mark or private. We have issues with kids on the playground, strange men coming up to the playground, to the pool. I think needs to be some consideration of why there's ropes or why there's fences, why we need better signs for people that come to our beach, particularly that aren't residents of Fairfield and don't respect the private property. For us, it often feels like the beach is for everyone else, is catered to before the people that even live there. And I think that needs to be understood when we're saying, oh, you can't have a rope there. It's because people would literally just get up on their lawn. It's not policed, it's not enforced, and it's frustrating for the residents that live down there and pay the taxes and the people that pay to go to the club and have to wonder if their kids can even be on the playground because there's strange people coming up that just disregard private property rights.
Thank you.
We have another person online. Emily Howe.
I didn't intend to comment, but I guess I will. I think it's a little disconcerting how beach property is being targeted very specifically this evening. I'm surprised by it. I don't have a beach property. However, I have tried to grow grass in the beach area when I've lived there previously. And people who just walk across your property are unbelievable. I can't think why we would define a rope or a snow fence as a regular fence or why we would do this. I don't know what the justification is there.
Thank you.
Mr. Levy, could you speak to that?
No.
No.
Anyone else, Mr. Monk?
No, there is not, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. And Mr. Folds, when you were commenting, it probably feels very beach heavy this evening. For folks who weren't around at the initial presentation, I think there were like 20 or 30 regulations that these were part of. The two that pertain to the beach happened to be two that were pulled out for further discussion, whereas most of them were adopted, sort of quickly and without much controversy. So there were lots of recommendations. Most of them had nothing to do with the beach, but we get special attention for the beach regulations. Anyone else looking to comment on this? Commissioner Monahan.
How do other towns address the posts with roads and the snow fences on beaches?
I would have to research that to find out, what's specifically indicated. I mean, I will tell you that for direct waterfront properties, we don't do this, but we're supposed to, for any change to a property within the flood zone, issue individual permits for every single thing. In my experience working for a few coastal municipalities, nobody has issued permits for fences, but in the velocity zone in particular, fences are not suggested or recommended in high velocity zones. I know that it has been, again, as Matt indicated, our zoning enforcement officer, Mr. Decker, our prior practice has been that, to Mr. Grauer's point, that snow fences actually tend to have a beneficial impact with sand generation and sand retention. So it has been our practice to certainly allow for snow fences. I think, we have had calls from the DEP who get called directly when sometimes those are placed a little too waterward. And they've had to come out and do enforcement. So, I do think it comes up, and whether it's, somebody who is new to the beach area, doesn't realize the public trust requirements, that are in effect. So sometimes we do have enforcement that we have to deal with, whether it's Matt, whether it's the state that has to come down and then issue a letter to a property owner. But generally it gets resolved. We've only had one issue where we really had to kind of work through a long period of enforcement. And it was a solid structure that was installed. So, whether we have two definitions of fences that apply to, and again, keeping in mind that this regulation was intended townwide, and whether we have a different definition for what's acceptable, that allows some guidance for our property owners. I understand, to Mr. Grauer's point, that some of this is guidance from the state. When a property owner in town looks for guidance, they look to the town first. So even if it's slightly repetitive, it might be worthwhile to be able to have that guidance within our own regulations as well.
Good.
Last question, do you believe there's any legal ramifications to saying that somebody could not confine or mark the boundary or prevent entrance to their property if it's currently on the beach?
Can you ask that question again?
Do you think that if someone is told you cannot demarcate your property and fence it off on the beach, that there's any legal ramifications to that if we were to pass this rule to say that fences were not allowed on the beach? You couldn't fence in your backyard. You think that's
Well,
legal?
Again, I think it depends on how you define a fence.
Right.
I think that's really the key.
I'll answer a little bit to that. One of the things that we prevent as a agency for the town and supporting the coastal area is not allowing people to put items or structures up that can become buoyant like a fence. It's not, you can't, I mean, securing a fence is one thing. Security, once a good wave comes in, it'll just take it down. And then it just becomes a damaged object. We don't want that to happen. And I think that delineation of one's property with a snow fence or a rope was a better use of keeping the sand intact for prevent erosion. And then the fence with a rope is, you're talking about 4x4 posts that are buried, 3 or 4 or 5 feet into the ground. And usually a 3/4 inch or a 1 inch rope that goes through through the hole. And that was a more logical way for someone to protect their private property, but in the same, path, allow people to walk when it's low tide. Because low tide is town or state property through Long Island Sound. And everybody can walk on low tide. When you get high tide, you get up onto one's private property at that point.
Okay.
So that's why, fences, the definition that we have in the regulation right now, the beach district is much different than the rest of the town. We have a 6 height requirement throughout the town. Now we'd like to install a 3-foot requirement on corners and line of sight obstructions. But the beach district is completely different once you pass the outside wall of the house.
Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, just to address your question, it's already in violation of zoning 4.12 to set up a fence beyond the existing outer wall of the property. The only purpose here is to define what is a fence.
Right.
Okay, so, in answer to your question, the legal ramifications, since 1989, and nobody's appealed it or challenged it that I'm aware of, fences have not been allowed shore side of any houses that existed at that time. Now, the only question is, what is a fence?
Trying to add it in there. Yeah.
I think that will answer all of your questions.
Okay. Any Commissioner Randolph?
Yeah, so just to clarify that point, Commissioner Levy, so right now, many of the pictures you showed were in violation of the existing ordinance
Well,
since 1989.
Oh.
it all depends. It all depends. how you
I'm sorry,
define
I'm
fence.
asking an attorney and the zoning.
I'll respectfully disagree with that.
I'm asking the question.
Yeah, and this was, it wasn't a decision that was made solely by myself. It was a department discussion, and snow fencing and ropes were something that we allowed.
No, so in the photos,
I didn't see the photos. Oh,
that's what I was asking about, the photos.
okay.
So in the photos, there are many illustrations of fences that are perpendicular to parallel to the water line that designate a property line. Are those in violation of the existing ordinance?
Again, I haven't seen the photos,
No,
but if we're
I'm-
talking about a solid fence, again, as you know, yes, the regulation was created in 1989. Have things been built since 1989 that we're not aware of? Yes. Would it be in violation? Potentially. But I, as the enforcement officer, don't go from door to door every single day trying to find a violation. Usually it's self-enforced by a neighbor will call and say, hey, this guy put up a fence and I can't see, down my line of sight.
Yeah.
Then I address it and I go out and I handle it, whether it's in the Beach District or any other part of town.
I'm just trying to clarify. If a fence is along a property line, parallel to
It's in violation.
okay, it's in
Yes.
violation, yeah. And so
It's
we're
a
just
solid fence that's more than a foot above grade. that doesn't fall under what I have, and I say because I will issue the okay to do it. A snow fence or a post with rope. Anything beyond that is in violation.
Right. So property owners are not permitted under the current ordinance to put a fence, and I'm not talking about the definition of a fence, parallel to the water line along the property line, under since 1989.
Or perpendicular
It's
in
not
either
their
direction.
property line.
Excuse me?
On their property. The state clearly defines where the property line is. Look at this document.
I didn't ask you the question, sir. I was asking Mr. Decker because I think you're misinterpreting my question. I'm asking whether a fence along the property line, parallel to the water line, is in violation of the existing ordinance, barring the definition of a fence.
Whether it's on a property line or it's on their property of some sort, but yes.
Okay.
Any, Commissioner?
Just to clarify, if it's between the back of the house,
Anywhere
the
beyond
mean
the
high
outside.
water mark,
Yes,
fence is prohibited, but we still need to determine what is a fence.
correct. Yes,
And that's by the zoning regulations, not the state guidelines.
correct.
Since
It's under the definition.
We currently have regulations about snow fences on the beach, so this has been addressed.
We do not.
No, that's just
It
through
was an
the state.
office interpretation, which is why we're trying to provide clarification. Yes.
See what you.
Gladly.
And Mr. Mullen, no one else online?
I was gonna give it to you anyhow. You're the most reasonable person there.
I believe there should be a demarcation on people's property at the beach. Others do not.
There's a clear demarcation of who owns what there and what's the front. Right away. Keep it. I've got the original. That's yours.
Could someone explain what was passed out so I can get a copy of it later?
Nothing was passed out. A presentation was given to Commissioner Monahan.
Okay, that'll be posted, I assume.
All public information.
No one else here looking to speak on this? Any final questions from the commission?
This, can I read from this? It's a little cut off, but it says, if a beach association wants to put up a fence, is this allowed? If a beach association wants to install fencing, a full permit would be required for any portion of the fencing that crosses into the water ward of the coastal jurisdiction line. Please note that the LWRD does not permit fences that limit access to the public trust or impedes access. And to contact your local planning and zoning to learn more about your municipality's fencing requirements. Fences put in place to protect dunes and promote walkways is an acceptable use of fencing along beaches. Fences should not be used as a method of deterring or blocking public from any future endowment of the public trust. Made their point clear on this.
Commissioner Braun?
Can I ask Mr. Decker a question?
Yes.
In your experience, which is very lengthy, do you feel that any of the other materials in this fence definition should be outlawed on the beach area, or in other words, be defined as a fence, which would then be in violation if they extend beyond the front of the house? Like, it basically is defining a fence as a barrier enclosing or bordering a field, yard, or area consisting of vertical posts or slats connected with horizontal sections of sturdy material such as wood, metal, vinyl, rope, or wire used to prevent entrance, confine, or mark a boundary. It seems to me like what we're talking about a little bit is marking a boundary. It could be confining or preventing entrance as well. Like, do you have a problem with somebody doing the rope method, which you seem to be okay with, but marking a boundary, not just like vertical, but also like a square for your yard? Is that an issue, or is it just the material that's the issue?
I've already stated that, we have in the past allowed snow fencing and 4x4 posts with rope to delineate one's parcel. I am not in favor of any type of other fencing such as chain link, stockade, 4-foot, 6-foot panel fencing, vinyl or wood, because that's not what the intention is in the beach district because it'll become buoyant even on a good storm, not even a heavy storm. And I don't, I'm not going to in any way, try to rewrite that part of the regulation that anything greater than a foot above grade outside the rear wall is permitted, which it's not. So no.
So snow fence or rope fence, are those considered?
I think the term fence is the definition of that is a little too broad.
Okay.
And what we're referring to of what our office has permitted over the years and decades is not considered a fence. It's not, I could step over it. You can't consider that to be a fence. It's not obstructing me from doing something. It's just identifying essentially where one's boundary might or might not be. And that was the purpose of it. Not just that, but the snow fence to prohibit, continual erosion, and it works as a barrier and helps the environment. And I think, the definition of what this commission and we've asked to have, thought of is, not specifically to the beach district, but is more specific to the rest of the town. The beach district doesn't allow fencing. So that should just be out of the conversation. It's not there. It's just not permitted. And I don't want to enforce that it would be.
But so to continue to allow what you think is okay, probably those two items should be excluded from the definition of offense, it seems to me.
I think it's however you want to get together to write it up as what would be allowed or not allowed. I think that you should have two lines, allowed and not allowed, and be very specific about it.
Thank you.
And just as we are with the height of fencing throughout town, 6 feet. No, you can't have 7, can't have 6.5, 6.
Thank you very much.
It's as a definitive information. It's much easier that way.
All right. One more.
One last, wouldn't a 4-foot post and rope be another structure that's higher than 12 inches?
Potentially, but it wasn't something that we considered to be a structure. So it would have to be considered a structure, and we don't consider a post to be a structure. If you attach the fence to it, then it would be a structure.
Do we define structure? Asking.
I can't remember if there was a complete definition in the regulation on what a structure would be, but that's a vast definition line.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Mr. Decker, how many years have you worked for the town of Fairfield?
25.
And in those 25 years, how many serious complaints have you had to deal with respect to snow fences and rope? Rope and
snow, just one rope fence I had a violation on, and I took care of it.
In 25 years.
Yes.
And in your experience in 25 years, have you noticed any public safety issues with those two types of fences, for lack of a better word?
I have not, but I don't deal with public safety. I deal with zoning. But no, to answer your question, I have not gotten any phone calls on such.
Thank
and
you.
If I had, I would have directed them to the right place.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay.
Structure's not a defined term. Didn't think so.
Okay. No one else who wanted to be heard on this item? Okay. Thank you. We will close the public hearing on this item. Thank you, Mr. Decker.
You're welcome. Thank you.
On to our new public hearings, beginning with lighting standards, existing section 7, 10.8, section 17, consolidated lighting section TBD. Consider consolidation of lighting standards under a new section pertaining to multifamily, commercial, and industrial properties with regulations compliant with dark sky standards. Good evening.
That would be me. Thank you, commissioners. Ted Luxinger.
Can you just come up?
And sit over there.
Ted, what is a fence?
Got to make sure you're on camera.
John's going to bring up a presentation that Ted provided to us.
It's a short slide deck. It's all pictures.
And if I could just set up for Ted's presentation. As part of our ongoing work with the zoning regulations, one of the things that we have sought to do was where we have multiple standards that are repeated several times within the regulations, within different sections. We're really trying to consolidate those. So it really is envisioned that right now we do have a section that speaks to lighting standards within our architectural and site design standards. So Ted's going to give his presentation. I can certainly provide within the folder where we have current lighting standards. I think Ted in his research has some suggestions as to how we can do it better. And we can kind of move forward from there, but we have a potential landing spot for these when we get there.
Thank you very much, Emmeline.
So make one comment real quick.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to commend Director Harrigan for her efforts in consolidating and providing redundancies with the state law, because in my personal experience in wanting to do a project, it was very difficult to discern what the Fairfield regulation was, regardless of what the state regulation was, because oftentimes the state regulation defers to a town and it was difficult to understand. So the redundancy is very much appreciated. So I want to just put that out there. Thank you for your effort.
All right. So for the record, my name is Ted Luxinger. I reside at 729 Cascade Drive in Fairfield, Connecticut. Been a resident of Fairfield for over 35 years. My daughter's 35 years. I am currently a director of Fairfield Pollinator Pathway. And I also just joined the board of directors of Lights Out Connecticut. So I'm responsible for municipal and campus outreach on behalf of Lights Out Connecticut. And I am advocating for some softer lighting, essentially. And I'm advocating for the birds, the bees, the pollinators, and everything in nature that has a circadian clock, which is just about everything. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're looking to accomplish in pulling these rules together. And a lot of work has already been done in Greenwich, in Westport, state of Maine. There's a lot of examples that we can pull from for examples as to how to go about writing these regulations in a efficient and meaningful way. Next slide. Next, unfortunately, my co-presenter had to leave because he came from about an hour and a half away. So the public comments got a little bit long. So that was Leo Smith, who's with Dark Sky International. He's the director of Dark Sky International. And his claim to fame is right now he's suing the state Supreme Court for not adhering to our own laws on lighting. So I got to give that guy a heads up on that. So the problem is light pollution. Light is pollution. If you look at the left there, that's a sports light, and those are moths that are flying around the light because birds and pollinators use light at night to navigate, and the light that they've always had to navigate by has been the moon and the stars, not blue-white light from LEDs. And the blue-white light from LEDs is inhibiting their ability to pollinate effectively. And we're facing potentially a pollinator apocalypse. Easy for me to say. We could lose 70% of biomass. And it's happening very rapidly, and it's happening invisibly. Because when I talk to people, first of all, I'm obsessed with light, as you may have already figured out. And when I start talking to people about light and about the physical implications of your relationship with light, everybody goes, I never thought of it that way. And if I can get more people to just think about light in a reasonable way, just the right amount of light to accomplish what you need to accomplish, we will go a long way towards solving the problem. And it's not hard to flip a switch, which is really what drives me. The middle picture I love because that's Pequot Library, which is very responsibly lit. All right, those lights are under a portico, so it's not shining up and creating sky glow. And behind it are the lights from I-95. So I love the juxtaposition of overlighting a highway and then an appropriately lit town building, which is a beautiful building. And the point there is that responsible lighting is beautiful lighting. It can really make architectural details stand out and be a real enhancement to the town and the beauty of the town. And then on the right-hand side is a picture of the Home Depot
parking lot, and I've never been able to figure out what plant they're trying to stop from climbing the fence in their plant area, because those lights are on all night long. And there's no reason for it. So light is pollution if it's not managed effectively. And we have an opportunity here to manage it effectively. Next slide, please. So this is where we are, right in the middle. We're in Bortle scale 5, which basically says that the clouds at night are brighter than the stars and the moon. That's 5 out of 9. We've only got 4 more scale delineations to go before we're up at the very top. Yes.
What is the Bortle scale of New York City?
Well, it's probably, I don't know what it is, but you can look at the map there and you can kind of see where New York is relative to us. No, we're all in that zone. You know, so there's probably 6. If we're 5, it's probably 6.
Oh, so we're like right up, right?
We're right. Oh, we're right there. We are absolutely right there. And there's a couple of examples. There's a light that's not shielded from a bank on Black Rock, and a local church that didn't do any shielding when they put up lights outside. And every night I drive home from, or the nights I drive home from the Conservation Commission meetings, I go by that church and I see that light right in the road as I'm going along, and that needs, it's a waste, it's wasted light. Next slide. Light trespass. I always talk to people and they say, I've got a neighbor with a spotlight that is shining into, you know what, that's illegal. Light trespass is illegal. It's been illegal for quite some time. But how do you enforce that? It's a really difficult thing to enforce because you don't want to have neighborhood wars over somebody's light, right? And so you try and find a way of entering into a conversation and find common ground. But light trespass is illegal. You can complain. It can go to arbitration. There's no real easy way of enforcing it other than setting the rules and then making sure that new things that are built are compliant with the rules to reduce the amount of light trespass that we're experiencing. With the amount of apartments or new structures going up, I'd want to see a light management plan for every one of those properties and understand how they're lit, where the lit's aimed at, and what times the lights are on. Yes.
Just to, so let's say we were to adopt a new regulation that would, you know, contain and limit and appropriately light, for lack, I don't know the vernacular, but Home Depot, for example, what would their solution be? Would they have to put in new lights, or would they be able to shield existing lights, or what would something?
So right now that picture of Home Depot is out of compliance with state building standards, state building code. What they would have to do to be compliant with current state building code would be to put the luminaires have to be, what do I want, shielded. You have to shield the light. You can't aim the light out above the horizontal. It's got to be aimed at what you're trying to light up, as opposed to lighting everything up.
In other words, there is a remedial measure available to an existing light.
Keep the existing lights and put shielding on those existing lights and aim them more directly on what they're trying to light up. And they would be compliant with current state building codes. The new state building codes that are coming are going to put them on a timer or put them on a motion detector. So the next level of lighting standards is going to add an additional level of control. Next slide, because I'm moving towards that. Glare, seems like all the headlights are much brighter now than they ever, or maybe I'm just getting older and I can't see as well as I used to, but glare just seems to be everywhere. Next slide. So I'm zooming through these pretty quick. So this is, I love this depiction because this tells you where we are now versus where we're going to be. So if you look at the better, that's the shielded light, aiming the light down. That's the current state building code. Best, right next to it, is what the new state building code is going to be, because it's based on the ICC regulations from 2024, and the state of Connecticut is looking to adopt those this year. So what's on the right is going to be, so your large parking lots that have light on all night, those lights are going to have to go off an hour after the business is closed and stay off all night and be either on motion detector. So if there's any activity in the parking lot, the light goes on, which is great for the police. It identifies that there's something happening.
but when there's nothing happening, it's not lighting anything up. And you're saving money. With the cost of electricity now, this is a really good time to deal with lighting and focus on the conservation aspects of it and the reduction of cost aspect to it. So I think the timing is perfect for us to really look at this in a thoughtful way to beautify the town, to help nature, which is all around us. We care about it. We have a lot of open space in this town that I'd like to continue to protect. And this is the way you go about doing it. Next slide, please.
Ask another.
Yeah, sure.
Or not the best. When will that be implemented?
Right now, that's part of the ICC 2024 standards, and it's being reviewed by the state of Connecticut for adoption in 2026.
In 2026.
Yeah, so this year.
So this, as it pertains to a parking lot, if a light was on, automatic shut off, and there was a predator in the parking lot and the lights were off.
It would come
someone
on.
was walking by and the person was still, and someone was walking by, and
Yeah.
so theoretically, there would be other sources. This would be addressed that.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, the light would come. So it's about being intentional.
Yeah.
In how you go about lighting things up. I've got some examples here. So
I have
we
a quick
want to,
question, quick question. The ICC, is that the International Building Code
yeah,
that's being updated right now?
they create the standard and then it's adopted by states.
You realize that there's a bill pending in Hartford right now to put a moratorium on our state being able to update its building code for another 6 years. So I hope this would be carved out if that does pass. That's my comment.
That makes me sad.
Yeah, it makes me sad too. Sorry.
All right, by the way, there's a folder in today's materials, and I've got backup materials for all of the scientific facts that I reference, so you can read those at your leisure. You don't want me reading them, it'll take us too long. My objective is to protect nature. That's really all I'm trying to do. And advocate for nature because not enough people do. And the points here about protecting nature that are on the slide is too far away for me to read it, so you can read it yourselves. But that's all covered in one of the documents that's in the folder. I've got a bibliography of research about the impact of light on the impact of ALAN, artificial light at night. It's called ALAN. All right, and it talks about the impact on cellular life all the way up to birds and how everything is out of sync. So it all has to do with circadian rhythms. And by dealing with a tree next to a parking lot, blooms earlier and drops its leaves later than it should. And it's out of cycle with the pollinators that are supposed to be visiting the tree. So everything is getting thrown off because of the lights, because nature has dealt with the moon and the stars, not LEDs. And the LEDs that we've introduced in the last 50 years are making a significant difference and damaging nature in a very rapid way. Yes, question.
Yeah, when you say blue rich lighting, would that be like at Whole Foods, the sort of purple?
All right, so this comes up every time I start talking about lighting. Everyone goes Whole Foods, Whole Foods, Whole Foods. That's a manufacturing defect.
Oh.
All right, they bought those lights to be white and somebody put the wrong coating on them and it deteriorated and it turned into that violet light, which I think is like encouraging spaceships to land from outer space or something. But it's a manufacturing defect. So that's the truth behind that.
Compliant, or is it?
It doesn't. It's actually better for nature because it's not that bright blue white light. So it's kind of weird looking, actually, but from a nature perspective, it's better than a blue white light. So.
There's something to do with the kelvins, like the color of the
Yeah, well, Kelvin is, 2,700 to 3,000 is about the right range for brightness for kelvins, which tends to be more of an amber yellow light. Okay, as opposed to the blue white light is great in the morning. First thing in the morning, give yourself a shot of blue white light. You won't need a cup of coffee. Your circadian rhythm will get set and you're ready to go for the day. And then around 9 o'clock at night, get into ambers and reds and like sunset. Just expose yourself to the same colors as sunset Stay away from blue white lights, stay away from screens late at night. And you'll find that you're sleeping on a more regular basis. It's easier to go to sleep and you won't need any Ambien. It's probably drug companies won't like me for this, but if you deal with your relationship with light, you can really impact your life in a lot of really easy ways. And, you know, it doesn't take much.
The blue is like, that's like a 5,000, the blue white light.
It's 4 and above, 4 to 7. So a light therapy lamp, which during the winter, some people have that. I've got one on my desk. Yeah, it's up to 10,000.
Oh, wow.
All right, and that's mimicking the sun. So that's giving you a shot of sunlight first thing in the morning that aligns your clock.
Yeah.
Right, because the clock is so important when we digest and, you know, everything that we do in the course of a day. By the way, if anyone's around on May 7th, we're presenting See the Light at Birdcraft Museum. So I'm going to be speaking on behalf of Lights Out Connecticut and Pollinator Pathway. And James Ryan's going to be there as well from the town of Fairfield, talking about what we've been doing in Fairfield over the course of the last 3 years with respect to reducing the light intensity on Fairfield town-owned buildings. So it's actually a really good story. There's a lot of really interesting stuff that's going on in the
What
background.
is that again?
It's May the 7th at Birdcraft Museum. I think it'd be from 6 to 8. Next slide, please. Sky Glow, so save money. All right, next slide. 99% of outdoor light is wasted. 1% of outdoor light serves a useful purpose. So think about I-95. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Belgium and France turned off all the streetlights on all their highways to save money because of the cost of natural gas. 4 years later, the only lights that they turned on were at intersections. All the other lights are still off. No crashes, no increase in damage from automobile accidents. They didn't need them. They turned them off and they realized they didn't need them. So there are no stories about, horrendous crashes on the roads in Belgium and France because there aren't any. Next slide, please. So this is the answer. Light to protect the night. So these are the 5 principles of responsible lighting. All right. Is it useful? Is it doing something you intended to do? All right. Before installing or replacing a light, determine if light is needed. Consider how the use of light will impact the area, including wildlife, etc. Is it targeted? Is it aimed at what you're trying to light up? Or are you lighting up everything? You want to light up a walkway, but you're lighting up all the trees around the walkway and the house and everything else. Why? That you're wasting all of those lumens. And we need to learn more about how to embrace the night, embrace the dark. We're losing our ability to see at night, our night vision, because there's not that much night anymore because of all the light. Go to a really dark place and look up at the sky. And, it's an amazing thing if you're not dealing with sky glow that we are here. Low light levels, use the least amount of light necessary to accomplish what you want to. All right. Is it controlled? Is it on a motion detector? Is it on a dusk to dawn? And finally, the color intensity, the Kelvin. If you're 2,700 to 3,000 Kelvin is about right. And if you follow those principles, you'll end up with very useful, beautiful, much less expensive light. And you'll end up with a much prettier downtown Fairfield. So I'm not advocating turning out the lights. I'm advocating adjusting the light and being thoughtful in how we deal with lighting. Next slide, please. This is in the packet. It's actually a very interesting comparison of the lighting regulations in Greenwich to the lighting regulations in Westport to the lighting regulations in Fairfield, and then highlighting the delta, the differences. So the red point, that second column is where Fairfield's lighting regulations could be adjusted to be more in compliance with Dark Sky International guidelines. So Dark Sky International and Lights Out Connecticut have templates for these regulations that we've presented to TPZ to use as a way of, building out the regulations. Next slide, please. The state of Maine has just implemented this lighting regulation statewide. It's a great starting point to look at for creating the regulations for Fairfield. If the state can do it, the town can do it. Next slide. And that is the library in Suffield. And that is with responsible lighting. No glare. Beautiful. Really enhances the building. It really enhances the architecture. The lighting pattern on the side of the building is meant to mimic the architectural detail of tobacco farm. They used to hang the tobacco from the sides of the buildings up in Suffield, and they used the lighting design to mimic that, or to make it look like that. So there's a project coming up in Fairfield for Woods Library revamping, and I'd love to apply these lighting techniques to Woods and really make Fairfield, a showplace for this. Next slide. And again, here's some pictures talking about James Ryan and the work he's done. You may not have noticed, but the intensity of the lighting of the town hall has dropped. All right, and that's been over the course of the last several years. We've been slowly turning down the light on a lot of the town-owned buildings. You might notice that a couple of the light poles, the flags that are now being lit are being lit from above using LED lights that are aiming down as opposed to aiming up. All right. Principles of responsible lighting. Very simple and very impactful. I mean, these are beautiful buildings. I love Pequot. It's just one of my favorite buildings in town. And the lighting is beautiful. And then to have 95 behind it, it's just such a perfect picture. And that's it. Yes.
So in terms of the chart, the comparison table where you show Fairfield, Westport, and Greenwich, in an ideal world, it seems like Greenwich has gone farther than Westport in terms of its management of light. Would an ideal world, if we were to sort of model something, would you recommend Greenwich as being?
Well, I would take what Greenwich has done and make some modifications to it because they did it a couple of years ago. They adopted pretty much all of the dark sky regulations and applied them townwide. I would probably, and we've made some, we've got some suggestions to those that we can provide to the TPZ. I think, matter of fact, I think, Emma, you have some of those that were done by Leo. He made some adjustments to the dark skies regulations because you learn as you go along. What's it? I mean, the biggest problem with any of this is enforcement. Okay. And the best way you deal with enforcement, and if you start here with, the commercial districts, the commercial developments, I'd like to see a light management plan for every commercial development with the timing and all of that identified and shielding and all of that identified. Lumens, if you can't measure it, you can't control it, and you can't, enforce it, right? So using the bug standard for lights, which all manufacturers of light now list their lights based on bug standards, which is a standard measurement technique for all lighting. So make it simple, make it easy you want to make it easy for somebody who wants to do a development to comply, right? You want to make it as easy for them to comply as possible. So one of the learnings is when you make the changes, you put the changes on a one sheet handout to anybody that comes in and says, I want to build X, Y, and Z. And you say, by the way, these are our lighting regulations and these are important to us. They want to get sign off on the project, and I can guarantee you they will be compliant with each of the steps that are required in the regulations. And that front loads 90% of the problems and makes it less difficult to enforce.
Randolph. Ted, thanks so much for your presentation and your thoughtful on this. And sorry that Leo had to leave. So I guess your suggestion is really to have a dedicated section in the ordinance or your request?
I think we would put it in our architectural, I think where I envision them going is within our architectural and site design standards, which now apply to all of our design business districts, our design industrial districts, and our design residence districts. So it covers where we're going to have our larger structures. So I think it's, that's where I think we had discussed.
And that's the biggest win.
Yeah.
If we can get a couple of parking lots to go, on timer and on motion, that's gonna be huge, just in reducing the overall
And so,
volumes of the town.
so that the content of that would be really the trespass, light trespass, which we do address in many of our site applications, shielding,
But how do you enforce this?
shielding and timing, correct? So that would be the emphasis. The other issue that is difficult is the grandfather things. And we talked about grandfathering on pools earlier. Signs are my big bugaboo. But I think for grandfathering, it likely could be taken care of through new applications or through
Yes.
amortization. So to say if something
Well,
is,
we haven't really, I mean, I think amortization, we would have to discuss with the town attorney. That's not generally something that we've enacted within our regulations. So if I understand where you're going is, if you've got a project that was approved 20 years ago, there should be some amortization to installing that new standard that comes into play. Now, if for whatever reason, for example, if it does get incorporated into the building code and 10 years from now, as they do a facade remodel to a building, they propose a new lighting plan, even if we haven't adopted a change to our zoning regulations, but the building code,
Big building code.
the building code would trigger. So
I think that that's an issue we need to think through because people can get around it by, if we said more than 50%, people can put 25% in one year, 25% another year, 25%, and never be obligated to comply. So I think that's an issue that we need to address, and so I'm just identifying that as an issue.
I defer to you guys, as the experts with respect to this. I just think right now the timing is perfect to focus on this as an issue because of the cost of energy.
Right, and so the
commercial.
The other thing, and again, this is all commercial, is right now, we don't require a lighting plan, do we, in our plan
we do.
applications? Is it specifically called out?
Yes.
Okay. Is it new?
No, it's,
Well, I know they submit them, but I think that's a request. It's not necessarily an obligation of a plan set. Imagine.
no, so right now, for items that are subject to architectural and site design standards, we do require on the architectural details that they give us details of the facade mounted lighting fixtures. We also require within parking areas, streetscape and landscape, that they show that they comply with residential foot candle requirements. So because of that, it's implied that they have to require that they provide a lighting.
I've looked at that before and like on my applications, it's much more specific in most places where we have to submit a lighting plan that complies to a specific standard. Because right now our requirement for a lighting submission plan is, and people have been doing it. But I think out of courtesy, but not out of obligation. So I think that would be helpful because in a lighting plan, the lighting plans we've been getting have been pretty good. But we could then specify,
if you do bug rating, then they'll just pick fixtures that fit into that bug rating and make it easier for everyone.
So basically addressing trespass shielding and timing, addressing grandfathering and also requiring specific lighting plans submission would be good. But that's primarily for commercial. So for residential, it's a little trickier. And I'm just wondering, we should probably look at what other towns have done because then it could become onerous for if it's new construction, it's not an issue, but for renovations, it could become onerous and then confrontational for implementation. So
what I would say is, in my conversations with our zoning enforcement office staff, they we do not have the staff capacity to enforce this for our 20,000 residential properties. So, you know, I think where there's more capacity for us to enforce this is with commercial, multifamily through the design residence district, because those are more extensive plans that come before this body. I just think for single family homes where we can't control if somebody installs a light after the fact, and we don't usually have that level of jurisdictional review if they're a weekend warrior who goes to Home Depot or Lowe's or, you know, pick your favorite hardware store. We just do not have the capacity to enforce in single family residential zones.
I don't know if we have guidelines, but you know, there's a whole pollinator pathway program, right? Which is it's more of an educational program, a volunteer program. So
I was gonna volunteer. So I'd love to work with you guys jointly on an educational program to, you know, help people see the light. And then
not see
a
not
percentage
see-
of people just understanding that, you know.
So on commercial, I think we got a pretty clear path. And then would it be by district or by property type? Because we're getting.
No, I think, again, these architectural and site design standards, the lighting will be a section of it, but then we'll also have the other components that apply.
Theoretically, we get 16 units in places that are not in residential zones, right?
Well, if
Potentially.
well, potentially, but I mean, I hope that our design residence district covers it. I mean, if right now we wouldn't in our single family residential zones because that's not something that we permit.
And so if we get an 830G, say when we get an 830G again.
Hopefully not till 9 years from now.
Yeah, hopefully not for 9 years. But would that, if we have these guidelines specific to a building type, would we have more authority to request that as a, not at all?
No, only if it's in the building code. So if right now there's baseline standards within the building code, an 830G project still has to be built to meet the life safety codes of the building code.
So if I know that with our 830Gs, a lot of the applicants were somewhat flexible on complying with our existing standards. If we had that in for building type rather than a location, that might allow us to guide them to something.
830G does not allow us to do anything.
No, but I'm saying the negotiation with the 830G, a lot of times they would put stuff in to help expedite, I guess, the lack of resistance from the commission. So if we put it in for building type rather than just areas, it just might offer an opportunity for.
What I will say is a lot of 830Gs will do the code review process, the interdepartmental code review process prior to coming before this commission. And we do suggest to them, you know, especially if it's a building that's going to be of a higher height envelope than the surrounding buildings around it. We do talk about lighting, making sure you don't have fixtures higher up on your building, because for a smaller structure, you're going to have glare, you're going to have inadvertent downlighting on this building. So we have, in that circumstance, asked them if they're looking for lighting and safety around entry points to the building or to the parking structure, please put that at the first story level. You don't have to put that all the way at the top of a building, for example. And they've adhered to that for the most part, I feel like.
And I'm sorry, I think this just popped in my head. I mean, of course, we need to do it by building type because schools, churches, public buildings, they're often, I mean, there's a pump station right by the west campus of Sacred Heart that is just like, you can see it from Mars. I mean, it's really bad. It's really, and there's only like 4 lights on it, but it's egregious.
So my job is outreach director for Lights Out Connecticut for campus and municipalities. I'm working on Sacred Heart.
No, I'm saying, but I'm talking about the regs now. So
Yeah.
I think we need to put the regs in the regs. It's got to be more than just zones.
Okay.
Yeah, because like that, I don't know, but you probably don't drive there, but it's bad. You know which one. Yeah, so.
Question?
The health and safety aspects of lighting as well, is that something where something passes through them before it passes through us, or comes from here and then goes there, to make sure they're on board with any, you know, potential changes to lighting plans on public or private property that, you know, could be a safety issue for individuals.
Well, for private property, it's really only going to be as was discussed, the developments within any of our business districts, our design residence district, design industrial district. That's part of the reason I know Ted and I have had this conversation about wanting to have a university overlay zone. What I will say is universities are a special exception use. So there is a higher standard that's applied to those types of uses that triggers an additional layer of standards and review. But I do think the universities probably should have their own regulations that then point back to these standards so that, we're not just being arbitrary in kind of cherry picking what we want, but it's very clearly defined that, hey, these are buildings that are going to apply to the same standards.
I think anyone who sees this presentation is enlightened. To say, how can I help? I didn't know that. What don't I know? And like, Commissioner Randolph spoke to earlier, education, I think.
Education's huge. Education's huge. And I'm happy to work with you guys. I'm putting up flyers now for migration. So people start thinking about the birds, because there's a million extra birds flying around this time of year. And there's a percentage of the population that I've got an example of a neighbor who lights up his backyard every night, which you can imagine drives me a little bit nuts. And then he put an owl house up. And I'm like, wait a minute, an owl is a nocturnal hunter, and you lit up your backyard. It's going to be an empty house for a long time because he's not going to show up. So that just shows he just doesn't know. He's not trying to be, a bad person, just doesn't know. So you just got to put the facts out there and let people come to it. And I think a big percentage will come if we do enough of the outreach with respect to that. But I thank you all for your time and attention to this. Being a commissioner, I know what you put in on this, and we're working on conservation, on tightening up the easement language and doing a lot of other things with respect to lighting. Matter of fact, everybody knows on the Conservation Commission, I'm going to ask about lighting, so it doesn't matter who's coming before us. But this would be a great first step, and thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Do we, guessing you're not here to looking to comment. This one, do we have anyone
I
online?
have a quick comment.
One second, Commissioner Brunt. If anyone is looking to comment on this, please just sign in the chat and indicate by raising your hand. Go ahead, Commissioner Brunt.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at our existing regs. It does mention dark skies, but in a general way, so it's subjective. So this, if we adopt something like Greenwich or Westport, it would have a breakdown of a lot of metrics that would provide guidance and enforceability, I guess. But also I'm noting that in our current regulations, the word lighting is mentioned 28 times. Would our new regulations segregate all of that and remove it from the sections that they're in now and just move it all to a different section? Is that what we're envisioning?
Yes, so yes, to a certain degree. What we would do is within some of those other sections, we would just reference, direct them to that section. We don't want to have lighting regulations that are repetitive by district. If we're doing that, then we want to pull it from those individual districts and then create a section within the standards, the supplemental standards section, because we just don't want to keep repeating the same language. I do think that inadvertently, we've kind of sprinkled different sections of lighting requirements within our regulations instead of having a consolidated place to refer to those standards.
Okay, and when you mentioned the only residential it would apply to is the design residence district, but there are other, how else would it apply to multifamily or even nineplexes? We consider nineplexes middle housing, not multifamily, but that's pretty big. It seems to me like there has to be a way of applying this to residential, maybe like bigger than a quadplex or something, or maybe bigger than we have 5 plexes now in B zone. So how do we apply this not to single family homes maybe, but something that could end up with a whole lot of light pollution? I don't know what the number of units would be.
So within our B and C districts where we allow for multifamily, those are limited height structures. So those cannot exceed 32 feet to the midpoint of the roof. So those are, those are lower height volume type buildings, consistent with the single family districts. So we haven't really looked to add these kinds of standards again to those more than 20,000 structures.
I think of like a nineplex, you know.
So a nineplex right now, the only way to do a nineplex in Fairfield right now is through landing a designed residence district. If in the future, because we have talked about middle housing and wanting those more modest developments, if we, for example, decide, hey, we're going to create a new district or we're going to carve out a different regulation within the design residence district, these lighting standards would still apply because it applies to the design residence district unilaterally.
So the two on Reef Road, the two nineplexes, are those, did we give them a DRD zone change? I don't remember what we did with those.
No, those were in the neighborhood design district. And
Already.
so both of those, I think those projects got variances to be 100% residential. So the lighting standards would still apply to those.
Okay, thank you.
So one thing that Greenwich did that I did like was they created a special district for open spaces. So anyone who abutted an open space or protected area had a special level of lighting restriction to protect those open spaces from any kind of trespass specifically. I like that, but that's adding to complexity that you may not want to.
Ted, we don't have open spaces as a designation on our zoning map.
I know you don't.
I know.
All right, you guys have been here a lot. Well, good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Ted.
So much.
It's been a
And,
pleasure.
and looks like there are no one is looking to speak on this, so we will close the public hearing on this item. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And we'll see you later when I start talking about bird-friendly glass.
Thank you. We need that too.
All right, and that brings us to our last public hearing of the evening, section 25.13.4, Conservation and Parking Management Districts. Proposed language that retains minimum parking standards for residential developments less than 16 units for two areas not to exceed 8% of Fairfield's land area as permitted per Public Act 25-1. The two areas under consideration include portion of Southport and portions of the Fairfield Center, extending northerly to the west of Fairfield University and south into the residential B zone along Reef Road.
Sorry, I just realized that I did not properly number the section for this. It probably should be, we can have it be section 25.13.4, or it could be section 25.14, commissioners preference on that. But we do need to add it at the back of our parking section because this would, as was discussed when the commission gave us direction for the areas to start to investigate, this would then require parking for developments with less than 16 units to mirror the standard for developments with more than 17 units, whether those are standalone residential developments or they are mixed-use developments. So there is a proposed section within the parking at the end of the off-street parking and loading section that marries these requirements with the maps. And John, do you want to show those?
Yes.
So the commission's guidance was to look at an area in Southport. And I don't know, do you want to go ahead?
So what we did was, for John Mullen, Assistant Planning Director, we looked at what some other towns did, specifically Norwalk, and how they approached their conservation and parking mitigation districts. And they followed.
I will just really quickly. So We do recognize that the statute says conservation traffic mitigation districts, but Norwalk has labeled them as conservation parking mitigation districts because that really seems like that's what this is related to. We will check in with OPM. I tend to agree with Norwalk that let's call it what it is. And I think that we should proceed in that way because I think it makes more sense as a descriptive term for what it is that we're trying to re-implement in these areas.
So what they did was they followed, City of Norwalk followed zones. And so what I tried to do in creating this this district was to include areas. In this particular one for Southport, we included the R3 DRD zones, R3 DRD, and the Southport downtown area, so to speak, the DCD area along Boston Post Road.
Is this written somewhere or you're just reading from it?
I'm just
reading? Okay.
I'm not reading anything. I'm just kind of
Okay.
explaining
I'm
what we
just
did.
saying like what you included. I just making a list.
Yeah, I'm just kind of generally giving you the parameters of what we followed.
Great.
Um,
So the R3 DRG zones, the Southport downtown.
Yep. And we we use the Southport Harbor as kind of a boundary for the southern end. And then we went up to the north of 95. We kind of had to see where we landed as far as size went. We can only keep this, we tried to keep it as 4% goes. That's 1.2 square miles of area that can be covered. You can have 2 of those, a max. So we had to, as we did these districts, we didn't really know how that was going to land. So that's, these are this area that up on the screen here kind of shows that we had to trim out some of the areas that were,
and this is slightly still just a
this is
tad
slightly
bit large.
We still have some trimming
We're
to do.
still a little bit over.
Because we're at about 1.25 square miles for this particular district. So that's the Southport district. I'm going to go to the next slide. And this one is the.
And then could you tell us what the demarcation line is to the right? So it's hard to see what the streets are.
For the Southport district?
Yeah.
So.
Follows the zoning district more, right?
It was really the zoning
Right,
district
John?
we followed. We didn't, so I followed the back part, the part, whatever that's the back end of those parcels were. Let me zoom in.
But not always, right? It's kind of.
I mean, I tried to follow as best I could the parcel lines.
Okay.
So they're because zones are a good place to start, but the way our zoning districts work in this town is that they cut.
Our zoning
through
map
people's
is a
property.
mess.
And-
Our zoning map is a mess.
So there are lots of properties that front in one zone and have an entire an entire 3/4 of their piece of land in another zone. So, the methodology I was using was just looking at the map and then checking against the assessor's card to say, okay, well, what do we classify? What does the assessor call this as a zone to make mine? If it was a close, actually not even when it was close, if it was a split zone, I think I had to check them all because I wanted to make sure that I got the
Zoning
right
map's a
zone.
mess.
So therefore there were some, it kind of has like a missing tooth look sometimes in how I had to follow the zone line.
Can you explain the street boundaries of those parcels? So I could see one seems to be Mill River on the eastern boundary.
Yes.
From top to bottom, right?
The western boundary is the border of Westport and Fairfield.
And the eastern boundary is Mill River?
Yes.
And so what's the northern?
And that's Mill Plain Road, but not Mill Plain Road.
It's like Mill River, actually.
Well, I'm talking about what the northernmost road, crossroad is. I think that is Mill Plain Road.
Well, but Mill Plain Road goes north-south.
Okay, then is it, or maybe I don't.
Like, is it Duck Farm Road or, I can't tell from this map. Well, maybe you could give us, a rendering that has, street names on it so we could tell where that
Yeah.
goes. And how did you decide to go sort of perpendicular as opposed to along the post road? How did you come up with that? Is that based on where we're likely to see 15-unit multifamilies, or is it, or how did that,
We
how
tried
did
to
you come up with that thinking?
we tried to go into.
Well, this is a draft, so keep in mind, this is a draft. What was requested was to find a 1.2 square mile area surrounding Southport. So that's what this map represents.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I actually proposed two zones that would protect all of the Post Road Center District. I don't remember us actually coming up with that as a request, but I mean, I'm open to anything, wherever it's most likely someone's gonna put a 15-unit multifamily, and where it's most likely we need some parking there. So if that's Southport, then so be it. But I was actually proposing two zones that would protect a huge swath around the Post Road Center, where we've already got proposals for multifamily. But let's continue on. I don't want to interrupt your presentation.
This is the first draft area.
Yeah.
And then the second draft area. One of the things that we have heard time and time again is concern about parking, in particular in the beach rental neighborhoods. So we thought it was based on the number of complaints that we get, that we should really include the Residence B district, where there have been a preponderance of new duplexes specifically targeted to Fairfield University students, where we know that there's a lot of parking that's associated with those. So we wanted to, at minimum, make sure that those at least provide the minimum 2 spaces required for each side of that duplex that's being proposed. The question is whether, I think Commissioner Monahan had wanted an area north of adjacent to Fairfield University. I don't know if we specifically captured what was being requested, so.
That's not, that, I was saying the area surrounding the train station, going to the right, going toward North and South Benson Road, was more my concern, rather than going all the way up. Because I believe that someone is going to build 16 units and not have a parking plan if there is public transportation in the vicinity, like a train or a bus, more so than if they're on a main road a mile and a half from town. So that was the idea behind being closer to the town, which would also, protect kind of what's important to us, which I think is, making sure that we don't.
Can you say Winton Park?
Yeah, closer to Winton Park.
That's where this is.
No, Winton, that's not all the way up there. That's well past that.
Winton Park's that kind of light bluish area.
Not the whole thing, part of it.
Well, so the other consideration, I hate to go back to the beach area, is we know that there's a lot of college rentals also within the beach district. So do we include that? Again, I think that what was requested of staff was that we at least provide some area on a map so that you as the commission could engage in this conversation together. So, these are draft maps based upon the guidance that was provided. And I think that as a commission, you should talk through whether these are appropriate areas, whether you would like to shift some of these areas. I will say, I am very sensitive about Fairfield Center because we have a lot of parcels that were built pre-automobile with 0 parking spaces. I'm very sensitive about if something happens to those structures and we make this a conservation parking mitigation district, we may lose those buildings because now we are absolutely enforcing a parking standard for those buildings.
Unless there was a special exception given to rebuild what was currently there.
Well, we don't have that within our regulations, so we would have to contemplate that. So that's my concern. Everything that we love about Fairfield Center is because it was built before the advent of the automobile. It's so walkable, you know, you have these really great buildings that are really well interconnected together. It provides an almost seamless retail and commercial interface, right? To the
Time, if you do with the fee in lieu of parking, the reduced parking, the shared parking, and now not protecting those areas, a developer, an owner of one of those buildings very well could say, instead of having this cute little restaurant there, I now can have a 52-foot building with 14 plus apartments in it. And what's to prevent that from happening?
They could do that if we had parking requirements, and the only difference
But
would be
how?
that there would be,
If
they
they
would
have to show a
include
parking
more
plan,
parking.
if they have to show a parking plan on a tiny lot, and now you no longer have to.
They could put it underground.
They're, yeah, they,
Not in certain areas where there's flooding.
So I guess this is, yeah, so here's the problem. It's a terrible law that outlaws parking for up to 15 units pretty much anywhere in town, except for these two little 4% areas, and we have to pick where they're gonna go. So I guess from my thought is, we as a commission have to find some kind of consensus over where it's most likely to get a 15-unit apartment building proposed, and where we're most concerned where that could happen, where there's a problem with parking creating, you know, a problem. And then even if we do put those zones in, we're still not allowed to go beyond the other restriction for the rest of the town, which is 1 space per single bedroom and 2 spaces for anything bigger, you know, per unit for anything bigger. So that's what we're stuck with by the new law. So I guess it comes to me like, we have a downtown area that I know members of the commission and our staff believes, you know, we should not have any required parking. But then I have other views from talking to, you know, small business owners that if you have not adequate parking, it could eventually kill downtown. So that's something that we have to explore and understand. I drew circles around the downtown to encompass pretty much all the way from Chick-fil-A down to Southport. And because, well, I didn't have the software you have. I just got an app on my phone and it drew a circle. Okay. Yours is much better software, but it went pretty far down into the beach area also. But, you know, that was another straw man just to throw up there for discussion also. So we have to decide where we're likely to see the 15 units. Do we think we're going to see them up on Round Hill Road? You know?
But do we also think, can we also omit those areas where we already have Mosswood and other massive developments that are taking up big areas? I mean, can there be a hole in this circle?
It should be carved out.
I don't know.
It
I
has
mean,
to be.
I guess there could be.
You can carve a hole in it, I think.
Yeah, we should not be encompassing the 1.2 miles to include Mosswood when there's already a development there.
Well, there's 2 developments. There's the Anchorage and Mosswood and the train station. Yeah, so is that carved out of there? I can't tell.
That's the roads.
Commissioner Randolph.
Okay, so thank you for your effort. And let me just say what I think is going in the right direction. I hear a lot of misinformation about us requiring parking anywhere. We require a parking plan for anything that is proposed. Just to get that on the table, we're not saying there's no parking requirement. We're requiring parking where a parking plan to provide parking. So just, I'm going to park that one to make a pun. What's good, and one of the concerns, like one of the worst projects I've seen as a commissioner is that Reef Road 830G multifamily, where they came to us and we specifically asked them if it was going to be student housing, and they couldn't, I mean, it was very frustrating because obviously it was going to be student housing, and that one was going to have and it was an 830G, it's going to have a major parking problem. And so the area along Reef Road and Beach Road seems to be the most vulnerable. And we were sort of picked at because we were focused on the beach. Beach is our highest density area in town. It's one of the highest density areas in town. We've got, you know, the buildings are very close. It's an area that's very vulnerable to parking. Parking is a big problem down there. I mean, even, you know, as you drive here, you see all the rental signs and out of state plates, kids parking in the wrong places. So I think that what I do like is the basically focusing on the B zone and the BD zone as vulnerable areas that we have to protect. And I guess a question is there guidance on areas that we have to pick? There's no guidance.
So I have the statute here and it's really,
Very little.
it's very limited. It's so basically, what it says is notwithstanding the provisions of this section, which is the section that pertains to the parking, any municipality may adopt not more than 2 conservation and traffic mitigation districts in which the municipality may require a minimum number of off-street motor vehicle parking spaces for a residential development that contains fewer than 16 dwelling units, provided 1, no such district shall be larger than 4% of a municipality's land area. 2, a municipality shall submit a property description of any such district adopted by the municipality to the Secretary of the Office of Policy and Management upon adoption of such district. 3, any such zones may be contiguous. 4, the municipality shall allow the proposed developer of such development to submit to the zoning enforcement officer, planning commission, zoning commission, blah, 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 a parking needs assessment that conforms with the requirements of section C of this section. If a parking needs assessment is submitted, such officer or commission shall condition the approval of such development on the construction of off-street parking spaces, not exceeding 1 such space for each studio or 1 bedroom dwelling, and 2 spaces for each dwelling unit with 2 or more bedrooms, or the number of spaces recommended for the development by the parking needs assessment. So it doesn't, and that's kind of where it ends. There's really not much more guidance for what those. You could put it anywhere.
Okay. So logically I mean, based upon what's come before this commission before and the problems we have and a longtime resident of this town, the B zone and the BD zone seem to be some of our more vulnerable areas. That's just my observation. I'm not saying exclusively those, but those seem to be very problematic.
I think a lot of that area is already developed. So I think we would have to do carve outs for those areas that already have very dense developments and new ones.
I would like to.
We're not fully using the 1.2
sorry.
miles circumference.
Yes.
We don't have to.
Sorry, Commissioner Braun.
Do you have a sense of where the demand is or will be, just based on your meeting with people that come in and, you know, what's going on with economic development? Like you get the sort of first inkling of where developers want to go. Are they going to go up Round Hill Road and Mill Plain Road? I mean, I grew up there. I don't want to see anything there without parking, but you know, maybe that could be flipped over and protect, you know, more areas. Where is it where we're most likely to get the 15-unit apartment buildings? That's really what we're talking about here.
I don't, I mean, I do think that we have commercial housing, commercial building stock that's aging out. It's just really a question as to whether or not that individual property owner is making enough of a return without a significant investment on some of these properties. It's like, I think any other market forces at play. If, you know, a property owner has to make significant investments in a property, then they're probably at the point where they're going to seek to redevelop. What I will remind the commission is even with the 830Gs that we've seen, developers have provided parking spaces. I don't believe that in Fairfield, where the market really demands at least a space per unit, that we're going to see developments with 0 parking spaces. I just don't foresee that as being a reality. Because even if with an 830G, they still have to market those market rate units. And so even when given the opportunity to waive every single standard, including our parking regs, 830G developers have not done that.
I'm picturing 9plexes because when the commercial, well, actually, we just passed a regulation allowing it, but when the state law goes into effect allowing commercial to residential. There will be no public hearings, right? It's a summary review. So I'm picturing nineplexes cropping up because they also would not require any affordability. And if it's in the downtown area, they might not have parking. Or maybe student housing might not have any parking. So that's a concern because people will have cars, even if they don't think you're gonna have cars.
There's over 100 cities in the United States that have decoupled apartment from buildings from parking, so that they don't offer a parking spot as kind of part of rent, and I know we can't ask if it's going to be a rental building or going to be a condominium, but someone could very well keep their car at the train station downtown. Autonomous vehicles, Elon Musk is all about parking your car in one place, having it summoned to pick you up, and then to drop you off. It's coming. It's probably 7 to 8 years out. We're creating this now. A lot of developers are already looking at it. So I think to say that if we, this will never happen, and currently, no one is submitting a plan without a parking plan. If you have a train station parking pass and you have an apartment a few doors down, maybe you can get for a little cheaper because you can decouple the parking. It's absolutely a business strategy for a developer. So I would personally like to see that not happen, where we have 16 unit, 3 to 4 bedroom apartments, luxury or affordable housing on the post road. And I think it's something that is very real and could be here before we know it, if we don't protect against it.
But
do we know where? Oh, sorry.
Somebody who doesn't want a car and chooses that lifestyle.
There's most,
but like if there's an option in the marketplace, and we have plenty of apartment buildings that have at least one parking space per unit. And if there's a developer who builds a 15-unit mixed-use building, because in our commercial district, we're not going to allow for a 100% residential building.
This could be 100% residential.
No, it can't be.
It can be 100% residential.
Not the way that we've written the regulations.
Okay.
So when you look at the transit middle housing,
Is that
it says transit middle housing or mixed use. We've chosen mixed use.
Okay.
Because, in our commercial districts, frankly, that would be an underwhelming economic development opportunity.
Okay.
We want the ground floor commercial. So again, I conferred with our town attorney and he said, there's an or in there. You direct your potential developers as to what you want to see. And so that's what we've done in our design business districts. We're not.
So that's just the design business district then. Okay.
Correct. So we haven't added that transit middle housing option because there's an or in the middle of that statement. We've focused on mixed use developments. But again, if a developer comes in and wants to do a second floor on top of an existing building right now, which is built to the lot lines because it was built in 1900, and they're going to shore up the building and build 2 units above it, and they want to build that without any parking, and that's the way they're going to provide the lease to somebody. If somebody wants to live without a car, their personal choice, there's a market for somebody who would want to take that unit in this world where we have Uber, where we're in a transit oriented area, where there's a bus line that runs down the post road. So I do want to deal with the issues that we have today, but I also want to look forward for what people can choose in the future, understanding that it's kind of a reversion back to being carless and having that choice. There's still going to be diversity of potential places for people to live. And they can choose to be carless. They can choose an apartment with 2 parking spaces. They can choose an apartment with 1 parking space. But I think we have to decide what that might do to the fabric of our Fairfield Center. Like if we start absolutely demanding parking.
Commissioner Levy.
What is our current parking standard in the transit-oriented districts?
It's 1.25 spaces per unit. And so when a development has a mixture of studios, 1s plus dens, and maybe a couple of 2s, we found that 1.25 per unit has met that requirement really well. So trademark 1, for example, we had them build to that, to I think a 1.5, because they were the first out of the gate. They're overparked. They have too much parking. Alto, they chose to build more parking because they thought they were going to be able to lease commuter spaces. In today's environment, where there's excess spaces at the, Fairfield Black Rock Station, they may, if they're using the marketplace to charge a little bit less, able to lease those. I'm not really certain, but they have more parking than they need.
Commissioner Randolph.
So under our current reg, though, there's no requirement TOD, correct?
Well, right now it's within the Commerce Drive District for the transit oriented development park, and then the transit, I'm gonna get this wrong because we have too many districts.
With the ordinance we adopted, didn't we do away with all parking requirements?
There's still a parking requirement within those other sections. That is.
Supersedes?
Well, it doesn't. We're gonna have to clean up
It
those
doesn't, yeah.
sections
So right
because
now-
the state
right now-
statute really only allows us to do 1 for up to 1 bedroom and then 2 for 2 bedrooms and more.
Right now, the ordinance we passed does not have any requirement. It requires a parking plan, correct?
No, it has a requirement for 17 units and higher, where it's the lesser of the 2 alternatives.
Lesser of the 2 alternatives, yes.
Correct.
Okay, right, okay. So the lesser, if somebody submits a parking plan that says that
They only need 1.5 per unit.
they only need 1 per unit, that would be, so there is no floor right now.
1.25 or 1.5?
No, if they submit a parking plan that says they need 0.5, right?
Just making up a number.
Making up a number.
What plans?
She said 1.25 earlier and then she said 1.5.
I think for the Commerce Drive area, it's 1.5. I believe for the Commerce, and I'm gonna get this wrong because there's like 3 TODs in the Black Rock area itself. But the one that applies to the design and to the Metro Center, that was done at 1.25.
Right, but our parking ordinance says the lesser of, correct?
It does, because that's what's required by statute.
Right, so it says the lesser of, so if a developer came in, for example, that infill property done by the landscaping company that's right by the train station.
Right,
They came in and they said, we need 0.5.
right.
And their parking plan was one that was approved by staff and an engineer. That would be accepted, correct?
It's gonna be approved by whatever body is required to approve a project in that
But
zoning.
But there is no minimum.
If they came forward with 16 units right now, there's no minimum.
Right. Well, if they came.
But if they came
forward
in with
30
17 or more units, then they would either have to do 1 space for up to 1 bedroom, 2 spaces for 2 bedrooms or more, or a parking needs assessment,
Correct.
and whichever one provided the lesser provision.
Correct. Okay, just want to make sure we didn't, that it wasn't exempted from the TOD, which is what I thought you were saying earlier.
No.
Okay.
Commissioner Capozzi.
I think that you all have chosen really good options for the reasons that you've spoken about. I think with the Reef Road development and the propensity toward building multi-unit developments around the beach area, I think it's important to be able to regulate those, especially during the summer months when people are parking all over the place, and it would hinder residential parking. I also think that Southport Center is another area where we've seen one sort of massive multifamily development, and I think it's a desirable place for more similar developments as those options become available. And I think that parking in that specific area is at a premium. So I think you've chosen wisely, and I think these are well-reasoned decisions. And I think I like what you've done. I just wanted to say that.
What do you think about the downtown? Do you think the downtown should be exempt from this? Because a lot of it is, according to these two.
The downtown, like around the community theater.
Yeah.
I honestly think it's fine. I think that they've chosen areas that are more likely to have, 15 unit or less developments. I don't think that the downtown area lends itself to a massive kind of residential development the way that that Southport and the beach area did.
There's no one who's going to build an apartment building on Reef Road up to 16 units without public transportation nearby to walk to. So the circles need to be in and around the train station and in and around the bus lines because people will need to get from A to B. So they're not going to be building buildings where we're saying they're going to be building them on this map because people need to get from A to B. 71% of people drive to work. People have to get from A to B. And so the only way they're going to get from A to B is public transportation. So I understand we're moving away from that here as a commission, or we're moving into more kind of densely. Listen, I agree. Reef Road is a busy road. There's a lot of people parked on, and I hear the neighbors and I think it's crazy that we have to pick two areas that we even have this problem with this law, but we do. But no
But I
one's
think
going
there's,
to
I
be
think, I do,
building
I do
those
think
units.
commission,
What do you think?
I do think Director Harrigan has raised a very valid point that including the area around the community theater sets up a paradox where that area can't be rebuilt or even modified because of a sort of an onerous and almost
This commission can pass special exceptions to rebuild.
right.
If
This
Archie wants to go
this
down
commission
tomorrow.
this commission can,
Yeah.
but future commissions may not.
But you can't vary your standards. That's only the ability of the zoning board of appeals. So you don't have the arbitrary ability to modify a regulation once it's been enacted. There's case law, we just don't have that ability. So we have to kind of be very specific, and then you have to be comfortable with the choices that we make with the regulatory framework.
So if we do not pick an area like, let's just say where the pantry is, and that circle is not included, we could have a 52-foot tall building 10 feet from the street with multiple buildings behind it and lose all of what we love about downtown. I have a problem with deviating so far from the center when, if you listen to people in this town, they just want the downtown protected from, and there's, this weekend I was down, there's no parking. You may say we're overparked, maybe overparked during the day at 2 p.m. We're not overparked on the weekends. We're not overparked Friday night, Thursday afternoon, Saturday morning, and Sunday morning. And so, I for one don't want to see 52-foot tall buildings or higher along the post road. And I think that, not including them in this zone, we're going to see applications, and it's going to be sad because we're going to lose buildings and properties that we all love to visit currently. That could be, restaurants, they could be shops, and it's sad.
But we're trying to protect it. If you put the parking mitigation district in that area, that means that the existing area cannot be rebuilt as it is. So it's a paradox.
Some of the things that people love the most in our downtown are only possible because they didn't have to comply with the parking regs that we have now.
Well, I'd like to talk to some of these small businesses down there and see what they think. Have we done outreach with them? I mean, what I would propose is 5 of 10 to keep this hearing open and try to gather some information to see what the people that actually function down there are thinking about. They might not even know about this regulation. I'd like to canvass them, get some information from the people that are actually working down there. I haven't heard of a lot of vacancies, but I don't know. Are there vacancies where people can't change their building? Or it seems like we approve everything that a commercial owner wants. even the gas station pizza place on the corner of South Benson, we approved that. They got a variance for less parking, and I think they're building it now. And Mrs. Green's place, is that we've pretty much approved between us and the ZBA, people have gotten what they need to get done. And I don't see a lot of commercial vacancies, so I don't know if there's a problem. But I'd like to talk to the people that are actually, running these small businesses and ask them what they think of this.
Commissioner Delgado.
One thing I feel like I want to make sure this conversation and this discussion like ends up at a fruitful place. And like, we're talking about 9 plexes, right? We don't allow that anywhere that isn't a DRE, right? Which would likely be an assemblage, which is something we can't necessarily protect against unless we can try to think about where common ownership exists or like try to predict where people might buy up multiple properties to do so. And chances are in our commercial districts, given the cost to develop in those areas, it's probably unlikely people are going to do under 16 units. So they're going to have to
16 units of 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, not necessarily studios, etc., as they would be in other buildings.
we just go down this train of thought and then we can discuss. But I think generally speaking, considering that our commercial districts only make up but 4% of the town, chances are if anyone, the cost to develop, the cost of land in any of these areas, it's unlikely that anyone's going to do over 16 units anyways. So with that being said, I think that what we probably should be focusing on is areas like B and C where you can actually build 4 units and potentially more depending on any future changes. And that could end up being a problem like the beach district that we're discussing. Because it is possible for people to build 4 units without parking and create a potential parking issue in those neighborhoods. Right? Like that is possible. I think what we're discussing along the commercial districts is probably unlikely. And then you kind of factor in the paradox that Commissioner Capozzi is mentioning and the idea that, Director Harrigan has discussed. The reason why downtown is what it is, has been said ad nauseum, is because it's before the advent of the car and the fact that it poses an issue. What we could also see is that in downtown, we impose these parking restrictions and people buy up a bunch of small buildings in order to put something that's kind of lackluster and requires a ton of parking that will be behind the building now because of this. But right, we end up losing a property that way too, right? A bunch of small buildings get picked up, not for this Uber development that we're so worried about, but also just to provide the parking that we're mandating they do. And I don't think that's something we want either. So I think like if we're really looking at mitigation of parking issues, it's probably the outskirts of the commercial districts where we allow denser development, but it's not the 9 units, it's not the 15 units, it's probably the 4 units, 5 units that could end up posing an issue if they were to be built without parking. Right, so like that's a more realistic problem we could be trying to solve for. And if that's the case, then right, it is probably more in line with what staff has put together and recognizing that it's areas that as of right, you can develop larger properties, but it isn't 9 units, right? Like, I don't think that's the boogeyman that there's going to be a bunch of 9-unit developments without parking is probably unlikely. And trying to focus on how to mitigate against that is probably not a fruitful endeavor.
Up to 15 units.
Right, but they would still have to go through our zoning code. And that would require, as I mentioned before, a design residence district where you have to assemble property.
I see that in writing that is actually the case, that they have to adhere to our local zoning board zoning according to that, because everything I've read says that this is outside of that. It doesn't have to be inside of our zoning regs.
I'm not sure.
15 units, that you could build 15 units and it doesn't have to, it's not zone specific. So so whatever they want to build, it doesn't have to fit within our zoning regs.
You would have to,
Something in writing that states that.
I don't-
that's the case.
I don't know what you're referring.
And you would be
where
able to,
you're-
so saying that in the design business district, if somebody wanted to build a 15-unit apartment building without commercial on the first floor, I'm saying, according to what I read, that they could do that under this law.
Where did you, what's your source?
I'll pull whatever I pulled and I'll be happy to email it to you.
Okay.
But
Because
since we
I
have
mean,
no
again,
we have no legal
Yeah.
advice on this.
No, I reviewed this
And
with
I
Phil.
understand we're getting,
I reviewed this with Attorney Pierce.
I wish we could
I'd like
talk.
Attorney Pierce to talk to us because I would really like to know what could be done. I know that a nineplex can be converted from commercial to residential without a public hearing, right? That's coming on July 1st with the new housing law. And we also passed a regulation which may or may not match that exactly, allowing that. So
We did.
nineplex could be done without even a hearing on anything and pretty much as of right anywhere.
Not the nine, I don't know where, the nineplex is for transit middle housing. And this commission made a choice between transit middle housing, which is residential, or mixed use development. And we chose mixed use development. So there's not a 2 to 9 unit option within our commercial corridor because we chose mixed use development by summary review only.
So I guess I have to understand every aspect of the housing law and what it could force us to allow to be built wherever. You're saying nowhere can anything be built without following our zoning regulations? I don't know. I gotta double check on that because it's a concern.
Summary review. So even if we, if you as the commission chose to allow for transit middle housing with 2 to 9 units in commercial or mixed use districts, you would still do that by summary review, and this commission would have to determine which standards you wanted to apply to those site plan reviews. So it would require work to say, here's the envelope where, you only want 3 stories and you only want whatever your parameters are. You would still have to construct those site plan review standards. There wasn't a blank check. You could still, within the statute for transit middle, and again, we didn't refer to that because we already have standards for mixed use developments within Fairfield. So we have our standards in place to allow that. The only thing that changes is the process.
What
So
if
we
it's not
have our
transit?
height.
Yeah, well,
So we're not opting into transit middle housing. We're opting into mixed use development. And frankly, because in our commercial districts, we used to allow 5 stories, 50 feet. We switched to 4 stories, 52 feet. So we lowered the number of stories. We increased the height by 2 feet. That's a much more desirable option or an outer envelope for somebody looking to develop in Fairfield than a 2 to 9 unit development within our commercial district, which is kind of an underwhelming return on investment for the price of land, for, what we have already within our commercial corridor.
See, I don't really care about the return on the investment. I care about the aesthetic, how it affects the look and feel of the downtown.
And I get that, but developers are not nonprofits. So they have to be able to.
Zoning regs so that developers can make more money doesn't really sit well with me.
No, but they're not gonna, so we're gonna have a high level of vacancy as buildings age out if we don't give developers an opportunity to develop in a way that makes sure that they make some level of return. They won't get loans for new construction if they're not able to show some return on investment.
Now, if they're using private credit, they can.
Not from the developers that we've spoken to. So, I think that providing them with clear guidance, and that's one of the reasons why we do have architectural design standards now. We are trying to make those clearer and better. We've talked through when we did our very extensive TOD study, which had a market analysis that came with it. where we talked about, kind of the first floor. That's, so this is research that we've done over time to really talk about the flexibility and having a higher volume first story commercial that can be adaptable to office, to restaurant, to, whatever the use can be. And then the floor plates above that. So that's why we went from 5-story to 4. We just added a couple feet to allow for that more generous height first floor commercial envelope.
It's a nice idea. Yeah.
So, so I think we've incorporated those within our regulations. So when we talk about summary review, it's not carte blanche. They still have to adhere to the regulations and standards that we've incorporated.
Do we know anything else about the transit oriented study, was studying our trains,
No, not yet.
So, and then they asked a bunch of questions, but they haven't followed up. No additional questions have been asked.
They had a very busy winter with snow and plowing. And so we had a follow-up meeting with that, but it wasn't anything where they've made specific progress.
What are they actually looking for in our town? Are they looking at the Mill Plain commuter lot, or are they looking at the downtown
They don't
center?
control that. They only control primarily the Fairfield Blackrock station.
I thought they were looking at both Blackrock and Fairfield Center station.
A very small
That's not a
portion of
study.
ownership in the Fairfield Center station, but where they mostly own the land is down at Fairfield Blackrock.
All right,
The
so,
town owns
so
the downtown.
we clearly still have some more work to do, so we will, we're past curfew, we'll end for now, but hold the hearing open.
Thank you.
So we'll hold this hearing open, and that being the last item, we'll adjourn for this evening. To be continued.